Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I'm not sure why my sound won't work on the Stitch. I just did a whole story time. I go to watch it and there's no sound. Anyways, here's a short little story now. When I was 7, my sister was 8, we lived in this house with my mom. When we first moved in, my sister came in the bathroom, screaming, crying, so there was this baby in there with its eyes out and everything. And then when we would play in the little garage, there'd be like little figures running by because it was nighttime when we were watching movies. So we were freaked out, never slept in our room. This one particular night, me and my sister were sleeping on the couch like we always do, feet to feet. My mom woke us up, screaming, saying, why would we open all the doors? We're like, what are you talking about? We look around, all the cabinet doors are open, all the lights are on in the house, front doors open, back doors open, like everything's open, all the lights are on. Even in our bedroom, we have a dresser in front of our closet because we were scared of that fucking closet. The light was on in that closet and the switch for the closet was inside the closet. Everything was open and on. Me and my sister did not do this. My mom's POV was she woke up to the cat sitting there hissing like arched back and everything to the doorway of her room, and that's when she opened her eyes and seen everything was on, open, awake. Oh my god, I'm not joking, I literally just got chills. Needless to say, we moved out less than a week later, and yeah, that house is creepy, and I tried to find pictures of the inside of that house online, and there's only a picture of the outside of the house.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, I've always wanted to share this story, but I never felt like it was like, I don't know, I've just never shared it like online. And because it sounds crazy, and like if you don't believe me, that's like totally fine. Like it doesn't bother me, but I know what happened and I was there. So, okay, so this is I have 2 ghost stories, and this is my like one big one that like physically kept me up and like bothered me for a long time, because it like involved me. Okay, I'll set the scene. I'm at my dad's, I live in the basement, and we have push-up tile ceilings. Okay, that's a big part of it. I went to bed, I was like 16, 17, and I was kind of getting into like witchcraft, not really, but like I was delving into the realms of like spirits and other worlds when I was in early high school, or like middle high school. And things were like starting to like happen, but it might have just been me like freaking myself out, right? And then, well, one night, it's like a Sunday and, well, it's a Saturday. I go to bed and I wake up and I sleep. When I was in high school, this is a big part of the story. I sleep like this. I sleep on my back like a vampire, okay? And I don't move in my sleep. I sleep so soundly like that. So I'm sleeping in the basement like this on my bed, and I wake up at like midnight, okay? And I wake up freezing, like, which isn't too abnormal if I don't have a blanket on me. So I wake up freezing, and I noticed that my blanket's like all the way at the end of my bed and like off the bed. So I like get it, put it back on me, fall asleep. Wake up again, freezing. And this time it's like 2 a.m. and my blanket again is on the end of my bed. And ooh, I'm starting to think about where this story's going. It's freaking me out. Go to the end it's on the end of the bed, and I, get it back, and I'm like, what the heck? I go back to bed because I'm like, God, like, just let me sleep. And this time I fall asleep. Oh, goodness. I fall asleep, and then maybe I think it's like 4 a.m. now. So, like, it's like 2-hour intervals. I wake up, and my blanket is on me, and I'm like, oh, my God. And so I open my eyes. And I'm laying like this. I open my eyes, I'm laying on my bed, and I look, in my blanket, and this is like a heavy, thick blanket, like a throw, or I don't know if that's the right term, but it's like a big, thick blanket. And it's hanging from my ceiling like this, like at the end of my bed. Like not end of my bed like it's on the bed, like it's in, like my bed's here, my feet are right here, and then the blanket comes down from my ceiling, and it looks like someone that's like 6'4" is like underneath my blanket. I literally, when I tell you the fear that went through me, I literally thought my first instinct wasn't like spirit, ghost, scariness. My first thought was, oh my God, this is someone who broke into my house and is a serial killer and is like about to kill me. And so I like don't move my eyes from the person, and I like grab my phone, and then I bolt to my door because I'm like, this is fight or flight, and they probably are here to kill me. I'm going to run. And so I mean, I've never ran that fast. I jump up my entire staircase. I run. I know everyone in my family locks their doors at night except for my older sister. So I ran into my older sister's room, and I just slam her door, and I lock it, and I start sobbing. And I'm like, there's someone like in the basement, like, oh my God. And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, okay, there's not actually someone in the basement, but there's something going on that is like Bob, like that couldn't, like I didn't put that up there. There's no way, right? I'm not a sleepwalker. My dad is convinced that I did it. There's no way. I've never been a sleepwalker. I've never gotten up in my sleep my entire 21 years of my life. Never, ever, ever. And so I'm like sobbing to my sister, and she's like, Jack, like, what we'll do, like at the time, like looking back at it now, you're like, why would you go back down there? But the thing is, I wanted to know if what I saw was real, and if it was like, I don't know, if what was real. I felt like, was I dreaming? Was it going? So we go back down there, right? Me and my sister, and I'm going, if you're a person like we have, like, you know, the cops are on the way. I don't know. We say something to like, if it was someone who was a killer, they went, I don't know. My sister wasn't really believing me, so like she was like, let's just go down there. I go down there, open my door, and it's still hanging, and there's still that figure in my room. My sister's like, oh my God. And what it was my push-up tile ceiling. One of my push-up tiles was missing, and the blanket was up in my ceiling, and it was hanging, my big thick blanket was hanging from this little nail that was like this big, sticking out of one of the pieces of wood up in my ceiling, which I've never gone up in my ceiling before. So I wouldn't even subconsciously know that there's a nail in my ceiling, like, you know, and it was hanging perfectly that it would create thinking about this gives me the shakes. Like, I hate it. Anyway, makes this perfect shape of a person. And then, so I take the blanket down, and I don't sleep in my room for the next like 4 or 5 days. I don't know if you believe in saging or whatever, but it like this really like shook me to my core. So I bought like a special sage. I know there's like, I don't remember off the top of my head. But I knew at the time that there's like a certain type of sage you're not supposed to buy because of like Native Americans and how it's like harvested, and it's actually not ethical. So I like made sure to like get sage that was ethical at the time. I remember that being part of it. And I sage my house, and I like sage every window and every door, and I'm like, and I literally go around my whole house, and I'm like, whatever spirit is here, you are not welcome. You like, and I just kept repeating that in my family. My dad thought I was crazy, but like my sisters and my stepmom were like, yeah, like do your thing. And thanks for supporting me, because after that, I didn't sleep in my room for like the next week. I slept in my sister's room, but then I finally like went back down there, and it was fine. But yeah, that is, and then I tried to replicate the blanket thing. Like I tried to hang the blanket there multiple times. And I could never get it to do what it did originally. Which is why I think it's so scary. Like nobody else in my family, the house was locked, by the way, so it's not like someone broke into that, 1. 2, no one in my family would have done that. It's not a prank, and it really shook me to my core, and my sisters aren't the type of people to like prank me like that. 3, I didn't know that there was a nail in my ceiling. So even if like subconsciously I hung my blanket, how would I have like known to go into my ceiling and to like, how would I know to go to my ceiling and to do that? And then lay back down and then freeze and wake up? Like, it just, nothing adds up. It doesn't add up, and that's what freaked me out. Anyway, I'm okay now, and I like to, I don't know. That's my story. I have nothing else to say. So thank you for listening if you stayed for all this time. Okay, so thanks for the love and support. Like, thank you. Wasn't really prepared for all that. So this video is going to be a little bit more formal for the people, because I know how people who are into spirits are. They want to know all the details. So this video will be a little lengthy. This is the part 2 to give more details and a little bit more backstory to the original story. Part 3 with the spooky story is posted right now if you want to go check it out. It is already posted. So, okay, let's start off. It was not frogging, which I didn't know there was a term for that. Nobody was living in my ceiling. It's a push-up tile ceiling, and like right above it was like wood planks and like metal bars, like they'd have to like squeeze up there, and like they would collapse through the push-up tile ceilings. They're like, you know, whatever. It was not frogging. Okay, it was I don't know how to describe my basement. I don't have photos of it right now. I don't live there anymore. But anywho, wasn't frogging. I'm shutting that down. Okay, I know that was the biggest like theory. It wasn't frogging. Like I swear on it. Okay. Also, I like went up in my attic to like go look around after this whole situation happened. It's like it's this much a clearance, or like maybe this much. I don't know what to say. Okay. I have a list right here because I'm trying to like stay in order. It was a comforter, not a throw blanket. So it was like a thick, that's what I tried to say, like a thick, heavy blanket, like a comforter. So it was not a crow. I saw people saying it was a crow. There's not a crow in my basement. It's not a raccoon either. We don't have raccoons. I know animals can like do whatever. It was, the missing ceiling tile was like an animal wouldn't have been able to like crawl up a wall and carry it with it because it was like not, the missing ceiling tile wasn't next to like a wall or anything. So I don't know how it would have like, also it wasn't my dad pranking me either, shutting down that rumor too. My dad couldn't care less, okay? He just wasn't bothered. He wouldn't get up 3 times in the middle of the night. It wasn't my sisters either. Shutting down all that. What I meant by everyone locks their room is more or less I have 2 sisters I was living with. One of my sisters locks her door. One of my other sisters doesn't. My parents live in like the upstairs, like the attic, right? And the attic like door to the stairs doesn't lock. And if I thought there was a killer coming, I wanted to lock the door behind me. So I ran into my sister's room, who I knew had it unlocked, and locked her door. Okay. Cleared the air on that. I did take a picture of the blanket. Unfortunately, it was on my old Android phone. Okay, so I don't have it anymore. It's not in a Google Cloud. I don't have it. Okay. It wasn't really witchcraft I was getting into. It was like 2 years prior to this event where my younger sister, we're almost the same age, but my younger sister and my friend were like being really susceptible to spirits. We were Midwesterners, like lonely teenagers. What else were we gonna do? Sorry. We just started noticing things, and that's what I meant. Like, it probably invited something. I don't know. Anywho, okay. Also clean the air. Do not have anything follow me. Ever since this event, once I rebuked whatever, I haven't had anything happen. I'm very like confident in my like spirituality. There's nothing attached to me. I don't need to rebuke in the name of whatever. I don't need to read whatever book you're requesting. I don't need to like say whatever chant. I don't need to do whatever spell. Love the advice. I don't need it. Okay. Anywho, now for some backstory. What happened prior 2 days to the blanket story was I was downstairs in my room, and I was already missing some ceiling tiles because my dad was replacing some of the like ceiling tiles a couple like months prior, and because they were like old ceiling tiles. And when we were putting up the new ones, it's such an old house that the frame didn't fit for some of them, so I was just missing like 3 of them in my room, and like I was just dealing with it. And before I get into the story, I live in the basement because that's where my room is. Some people are like, why do you live in the basement? My room is down there. Sorry. Okay, back to the story. Okay, in my room, 2 days prior to the blanket story, I'm missing a tile right above my door, like my doorway. And out of the blue, randomly, I see like an ornament like hanging there. And I was like, or like piece of wood. And I grab it, and it's an ornament. And it's like this big, and it's like a sliver of a tree. And there's a tag on it, and it says, this is a piece of wood from Jerusalem, and it has like an engraving of like Jesus in the manger and Mary and Joseph. And it said it was like blessed in Jerusalem, like a certification tag. I bring this upstairs, and I'm like, hey, stepmom, like, look at this like ornament I found. Like, maybe it's an early Christmas gift for you. I thought it'd be neat. And she was like, oh, and mind you, I just washed it in the sink because it had mildew on it. And she was like, why did you just wash it? And I was like, it was gross. And she brought up that it was blessed by a priest in Jerusalem as like a blessing for the house, for safety. And the previous owners who owned the house that my stepmom knew, they were the original owners of the house. She was told by them when she got the house that that was a blessing, like they got it. And so that was a blessing to keep the house protected. And I theoretically washed the blessing off. Freaked out my stepmom. And while she was telling me this story, right when it kind of settled into me, like what I just did, a giant sheet of ice fell off my house, and it like crashed into the ground and made this loud boom noise that was very unsettling. I was just on edge. But anyway, made me feel on edge. And the next day prior, I just didn't feel right. And then the next day following is when the blanket story happened. So that gives like some backstory into that more of the story I wanted to share. And to all the haters saying I say like too much, like, I'm sorry. I don't know. It's just how I speak. And if you have a problem with it, tune out. Thanks for the love though. Everybody loving, come on, thanks, love it. Part 3 is up now, explaining my other story. It's a lot more abstract. So if you're really into spooky things, you're gonna be like, whoa. If you're not even susceptible to things, you're gonna be like, this dude is lying and like making it up. That's okay. You can say that, but like I was there. Like I said, I was there, and so was someone else and another person. So anyway, it's up now. Thank you.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I just saw this trend. I just woke up and I was gonna do it, right? I was gonna tell y'all what happened to me, and I can't get my phone to work. It like literally will not work. So this is the only way I can tell y'all, is a fake stitch basically. Okay. I have never told anyone this. I have never told my family, my parents, sibling, nothing. Okay. When I was a little kid, I used to see shit all the fucking time. All the time. And it was always when I was alone, something would happen. I would get pushed. I would hear something. But a lot of the time, it would happen in my dreams or when I was asleep. It stopped when I know this sounds weird, but it stopped when I hit puberty and everything calmed down. So one night I'm asleep and there was this, I don't even know how I woke up. I don't even know how I woke up. I'm in my little twin bed right against the wall, and there's a metal, no, it was plastic back then. A plastic shelf that was tall. It was almost to the ceiling, all the way down to the ground. All my kid shit was on it, the books, the toys, and I would use it like a nightstand too. And it went about halfway down my bed, and I could see through it. So I'm shifting in my sleep, and I don't know why I woke up, but I did. I see this child on my wall, standing against my wall across my room in a Hawaiian shirt. He's in a Hawaiian shirt and shorts, little short boy brown hair, and just he was like that. And we're both just looking at each other I was scared shitless. I'm just frozen. And he starts to walk towards me, but he doesn't walk normally. Guys, I am not lying. This is the truth. I have never told anybody this before. He's just walking towards me. And as he comes around the shelf, and as he does, he's just looking at me the whole time. And I was no. I start to back up in my bed, and I'm clamoring, no. Guys, I wish there was a way for y'all to understand. I have goosebumps right now. He gets up on my bed and stands over me, and I am cramming myself into my bookshelf so that he does not touch me. And he's standing over me just. And I said the normal thing that a 4 or 5-year-old at the time would say. I was please don't hurt me. Can we just be friends? I still remember saying that to this day. And the little boy just stops, and he's and he gets off the bed. He doesn't say anything. He just gets off the bed. And I was and he disappeared. I looked underneath my bed. I was that bitch. I went underneath my bed. I went moving the thing because I was gonna confront him. Why would you do that? Why would you scare me like that? I never told my parents. Never told anybody. Never saw him again. But it has stayed. I remember that moment so intensely in my brain. And I still question it to this day. I'm like, was that a dream? Or was it real? But I still remember like feeling the pressure of the bookcase like on my body. I still remember like shoving myself in there. I'm like, there's no way that that could have all been in my head. And wild shit, man. I guess they were right when they say kids see stuff more than adults do.
Me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I unfortunately do have a few of these, especially because I'm known to have an entity attached to me, no matter how hard I try to get rid of it. But that is besides the point. When I saw this video, I immediately thought of this one specific experience I had. This one in particular has just like really always stood out and stuck with me, just because for me it was so unexplainable and I had no way to gain any understanding of it, that I don't know. Let me just explain and I think you'll see what I mean. So in 2017, in the summer of 2017, I was in Paris for about a month for a short study abroad program. During my time in France out there, I stayed in an apartment with 3 other girls. And I drew a map, so just bear with me here. This was the layout of our apartment. This is the front door. This is bathroom, kitchen. The proportions are off and terrible for this. This is 2 of my roommates' rooms. This is me and my roommate's room. This is the living room. And actually, I'm going to draw this in. This is how the beds are set up in these 2 different rooms. Okay, actually, no. This is here. So our beds are next to each other. Theirs are across the room from each other. Most important is that this wall is against the wall of the couch. This here are the doors into the living room. They were like 2 doors that swung open. They went this way. They were really beautiful. And then we had this one huge window right here that looked out onto the street. I promise that all of that is important. So anyways, one night, it's about, let's say it's 2 a.m. I'm sitting up and I'm on the couch in the living room. And my roommate has been asleep for maybe 4 hours. So the girl that's in my room has been out. She has usually gone to bed super late at night or super early at night, and like I would tease her for it. Like she was whatever. My other 2 roommates in the other room were awake. That being said, I knew that both of them were trying to go to sleep, and so I was just like in the couch on the phone with a friend trying to be quiet. So I'm on the phone with this friend and we're talking and time is passing. It's a good friend of mine, whatever. And I'm sitting on the couch with the wall behind me, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's 3 really loud knocks on the wall. And I like jumped, like it really scared me. And the girl that I was talking to on the phone noticed, and she was like, oh my god, what happened? And I was like, oh, like I don't know, like something happened with my roommate, like she knocked on the wall for some reason. And so I like paused and called out her name and like didn't really hear her, so I was kind of confused. And then I texted her and was like, hey, are you awake? And she responded. She was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, did you need something? Like, why did you knock? And her response was, that wasn't you. And I was obviously like, no, that was not me. What do you mean? And again, I have my friend on the phone witnessing all of this. So I'm telling her and I'm like, that wasn't her. And she was like, well, it wasn't you. And I was like, yeah, I know. What the fuck? So like, it was really weird. I'm anxious and jittery, but I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna shake this off. It's probably like the upstairs neighbor or something. Like maybe I'm just overthinking this. So I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my friend on the phone and I'm trying to like kind of relax, and I'm so full of anxiety. Like that instinctual, like when I first jumped, that feeling of fear has not left me this entire time. And I'm trying to breathe it out, and like we changed the subject, we're having a light conversation, and I had to stop my friend and I was like, something's not right. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm literally shaking while I'm telling the story. And I was like, I don't know, I can't, I'm still so anxious, I don't know what's wrong, like, I just need to take a second and breathe. So, like, I stopped and I was, like, taking deep breaths and, like, trying to talk myself through it, and then all of a sudden, like, my entire body froze. And I was sitting on the phone literally like this, like I'm FaceTiming you right now. That's how this is working. And I'm looking at my friend and I go completely still and my face went entirely pale. And she looked at me and she was like, what's happening? What's going on? Why, what? Like she could immediately tell something was wrong. And I just like froze and I just looked at her and I was just like I just couldn't talk. And I can't explain the feeling of fear that came over me out of nowhere. And the doors beside me that went into the entryway by the front door were wide open and I could not look over there. Like, I mean, I didn't want to look over there, but even if I had wanted to, I couldn't. Like, I physically could not move my eyes towards the door. And I just picked my feet up off of the floor because I didn't want them dangling over the couch because it was scaring me. And I just sat there. And I sat there for maybe 45 seconds, just frozen like that. And then all of a sudden, all at once, all of the tension let out of my body. And like, I was still anxious, but that initial like heart gripping fear eased. And my body relaxed and the color came back into my face. And I was like, oh my God, that was so scary. And my friend was like, what happened? And I was like, I don't know. I can't explain it. Like that, there was something in the room with me. I don't know how to explain it. And she was like, no, I saw it on your face. Like something was wrong. And I was like, and again, I spoke to my roommate the next morning and she did not knock on that wall, but she's just as certain as I was that it was our wall that was knocked on. Like it was not the upstairs neighbors. And of course, I'm still anxious on the phone with my friend and she is like, this is so weird. What's going on? She checks the time. It's like 3:15 in the morning, which if you know, you know. And once I realized it was the hour of 3 a.m. in the morning, I was even more afraid. And the windows were open. Again, the entryway is to my right, the windows are to my left, and the windows were open, and I couldn't look out the window. It wasn't that same, like, I physically cannot look out the window that I had in my weird moment, but I could not look out the window. Like, it was really scary. Like, I did, but it scared the fuck out of me, and I didn't like looking out. So, my friend was an angel and she stayed up with me for the hour, and then once it was past 4 a.m. I went to sleep on the phone and I woke up the next morning and I was terrified and I was telling all my roommates about how afraid I was, and they didn't really believe me because who would? Like there was no real explanation for what happened. And then maybe this part is a little woo-woo, but I texted some friends who are like into some stuff that messes with things that you shouldn't always mess with, and I did have some friends who were doing rituals or whatever that night. So that could have been involved, but I don't know. I never got any explanation for what happened that night, and it was really scary. I don't know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, I lived in this house that both my grandmother and my grandfather died in. And also my two uncles died less than a mile from the house because they got in a wreck before they got home when they lived there. Okay, so fast forward. I am asleep. We had a hurricane come through that week. We've had no electricity for the week. I had the windows open. So, but I was taking a nap. But then the electricity came on and I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I should get up and let the windows down and turn the air on. I was like, I'm too tired though. So I closed my eyes and I fell back asleep, but instantly I was awoken to a man saying Ashley, which is my name, and it scared me and it woke me up, and I was like, okay, I'll get up. And when I got up, I went in the kitchen and I had a rag on the stove and it was on fire. It was burning. And what happened was when the electricity went out, I was actually cooking, so I didn't really remember to turn the stove off, so it remained on, and I didn't realize that over the time that the electricity was out during the week that I had actually laid a rag on the stove and it was catching fire. And if that did not wake me up, somebody saying my name, I was home alone, then who knows what would have happened.
So in case you haven't been seeing these videos, this person is basically asking for ghost stories that people experience that sound completely unbelievable, but it happened. So this basically reminded me how this one time, in this house actually, but it was in a different room where I used to sleep in, basically, I woke up from a dream, and I don't know why I had the urge to look outside my window. And outside my window, there's like a busy street where like cars pass by all the time. But it was the nighttime, so usually like, there's no cars. But there was a person that parked literally like right across, like in that street, like in front of my room. Basically, this person was staring at my window. They were in the passenger seat, not even the driver's seat. And literally, like, they were just staring. It was a man. He was just staring at my window and just like menacingly. And like next thing you know, he starts yelling and cussing me out. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So I like closed the blinds and I could still hear him. That man was literally like right there. Just, I was literally about to like go to my parents' room and like wake them up. Cause I was so scared. I was a little kid. I was like, why is this man yelling at me so early in the morning? And so I get up, I go to my parents' room, about to wake them up, but I wanted to double check and see if that man was there. And he wasn't there. So I was like, oh, okay. There's no point in waking up my parents now. But, so I just went back to sleep. But I was like, this is so weird. Like, I never experienced anything like that. To me, honestly, I'm not sure if this was a dream or not. I'm convinced that it wasn't a dream or not because I literally woke up. You know, I know I didn't lucid dream because I lucid dreamed before when I went to a sensory deprivation tank, and I know how that feels. Like, I was very aware during my dream state. So this did not feel like lucid dreaming. Like, it felt real. So yeah, very weird. Never happened again. Only happened that one time.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely.
So I'm a paranormal investigator, and while I was ghost hunting at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, I did see the inhuman entity that is known to roam there. They call it the Creeper, and I did see that with my own two eyes. So a little bit of background on the Creeper itself. It's basically, the theory is it's this entity that it's not a spirit. It's not from a spirit of someone that died in the hospital. It is basically a bundle of all of this collected negative energy just from the years that the hospital was in operation and how terrible like patients were treated there and how much negative energy was happening there. And it's just a collection, a manifestation of all that energy. And it's not a spirit, it's energy. That's all it is. If you look it up on YouTube, there's a video of a group of ghost hunters that actually caught it on video. And that creature that they saw in the video is more or less the same thing I saw. So it was around probably 10 o'clock at night, and our ghost hunt had just started. We're doing a tour of the building, and we get to the 3rd floor, and the guide takes us down the hallway down to solitary confinement. And so there's a group of us, and in my group there was my mom, my friend who's standing right next to me, and it was his first ever ghost hunt. Then it was our other friend, and then all the other people. There was probably about a group of like 10. So all in all, there was around like 15 of us there. So we're all standing in the middle of the hallway, right outside of the solitary confinement, and the hallway still goes down a little bit, but it ends probably about 20 feet away, and there's a window all the way at the back of this hallway. And then it splits off into 2 rooms, one on the left and one on the right. And just from like the night itself and like the lights outside, the hallway isn't pitch black. It's you can see, like, it's dim. It's pretty dark, but it's not pitch black. So the guide is he's talking about solitary confinement, and you know, I'm listening, I'm chilling, and I hear my friend next to me gasp. And so I kind of turn to look at him, and he's looking down the hallway, and we were on the edge of the group, so you know, everyone else also had a perfectly clear view of this hallway. And so I turn to look at him, and then I see he's staring down the hallway, so I turn to look down the hallway, and I see this dark mass like in the corner, and it's moving a little bit. And at first I'm like, oh, like it's a bag or something. Like, it looked like someone left a bag on the floor. However, I did in fact watch it as this moving dark mass hops down from the wall and kind of starts to, like, it moves back and forth a little bit, and it is, like, morphing, and, like I said, the hallway itself, it isn't pitch black, it's dim, but it was pitch black. Like, it was a pitch black moving mass on the ground. And the thing that will sticks with me to this day is its legs. They were like these sharp dagger-like legs sticking out of it. It was basically like a huge spider, like this dark hump on the floor, like this huge spider-looking thing, maybe about like a foot, 2 feet tall, if that. And you know, when you see something like that, my mind trying to rationalize it, your brain does try to rationalize things, you know, for the sake of your sanity. And in my head, I'm just thinking, like, who let a dog into the asylum? And obviously, it's 10 o'clock at night, and there's no dogs on the property at all. And then that clicks in my head. I'm like, oh, there's no dogs here. That's not a dog. Like, what am I seeing right now? And both me and my friend, we are seeing the same thing, and we both watch as it's still kind of moving on the ground, like back and forth a little bit, and then we watch it dart into the room on the left. And while all of this is happening, in my mind, I'm like, you need to take out your phone. Like, you take out your phone. Like, get a picture of this. No one is going to believe you. But then, you know, I was thinking, and I was like, well, if I get out my phone, and what if the flash is on? Or what if I get out my phone, and by the time that I get that set up, what if it's gone? Like, I was frozen. I was genuinely frozen in fear because I could not believe what I was seeing. So when it moves into the room on the left, we both start freaking out. We're like, what did we just see? Did you just see the same thing? What was that? And the guy just kind of looks at us and he's like, what? What's going on? Why are you guys freaking out? And so we tell him exactly what we saw, and we're like, it was this dark hump on the ground with legs, and it just crawled into that room down there. So he kind of looks at us and he goes, oh, okay, like, I'm gonna go, like, check it out, in case, you know, like, an animal did get into the building. So we're like, oh, okay, like, an animal could have just gotten in, right? So he walks down to the room and he goes in and he shines his flashlight around, he checks, and he comes back out and he's like, there's nothing there. In that room, like, it's only that room, and there's windows, none of them are open. Like, it was a relatively small room. If there was an animal, there would have been nowhere for it to go. So it was not an animal. It crawled in. The thing that we saw, that I now know as the trans-Allegheny creeper, it crawled into that room and then it disappeared. So while we're freaking out, the other guy that was with us, she kind of turns to us and she just goes, oh, well, looks like the creeper's active tonight. And we're like, oh, what? And so, you know, obviously, the whole group of people were standing in the middle of the hallway. Like, they had a clear view of that hallway, straight down. And no one else saw anything. We were the only two that saw it. And so, obviously, people weren't really believing us, but these other two girls in the group, they were asking us about it, and like, oh, what did it look like? And we were telling them, and they're like, oh, like, it could have been the spirit here, like, his name's Dean, and he's known to, like, crawl on his hands and knees, like, at people. And we're like, no, like, this wasn't a person. This was something inhuman. This was an entity. This was not a spirit. This did not even resemble a human whatsoever. This was just genuinely impossible. And as I mentioned before, I'm a paranormal investigator. Like, that's what I do. I go to these buildings, I spend the night, I collect evidence, I have seen shadow people, I have had full conversations with dead people. I don't get freaked out, but this is something that I still can see in my head so clearly, and it messed me up. Like, still to this day, and it's almost been a year later, like, it's completely changed the way that I view religion, the afterlife, energy, the world we live in now. Like, it fully sent me into a crisis. And the only person who saw it, and the only one that I can confide in and talk about it with, because my mom, who was all the way on the end of the group in the solitary confinement cells, she doesn't believe me. Like, genuinely, she does not believe me. The only person that I can go to is my friend, and same thing with my friend. We are the only two that saw it. We are the only two that knows what each other saw. And we even verified it. We were in the car on the way home, and I go, can you draw exactly what you saw, like, to the best of your ability? And so we both drew a creature, and they looked the exact same. And we're like, well, shit. So this is a drawing that I drew a few months ago of what I remember it looking like. As you can see, literally absolutely terrifying, and should not be possible, but yeah, I saw it with my own 2 eyes, and no one believes me.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I grew up in a pre-Civil War house that was a hospital at some point. So people were born there, people died there. There's over 200 years of history and lives lived in that house. So I'm sure you can imagine it was very haunted. But I personally think that it was not just human spirits living there. So one day I was going upstairs right before school. I had to go grab my jacket real quick from my bedroom. And as I'm going up the stairs, I started getting a sick feeling in my stomach. Kind of like car sickness, but it was just like a tight knot in my stomach, like just dread. And I would usually get that feeling when I was up in our attic, which is why I never went up there. I just felt off balance and just icky. So as I'm coming up the stairs, I'm already on edge, and I see movement out of the corner of my eye. And so I turn my head, and in our laundry room, I see, it's about the size of a basketball. It's smoke, like a ball of smoke, and it's moving in on itself and twisting and turning. And I don't know how to explain this because it had no face, but I knew it was looking at me. Like, it was looking at me. And I just froze in fear. And then I saw it kind of hesitate, and then it darted backwards and went up and went through the door that goes into the attic. At that point, I'm like, nope, I'm not getting my jacket. I went booking it down the stairs and was in quite a panic, clearly. So I told my mom about what I saw because I was freaking out and I didn't think she would believe me. And she told me that she's seen it before. And that my sister, when she was a baby, used to talk to it. She would turn around because my sister would be like babbling to something, and that ball of smoke would be in front of her. And she said the same thing, that she knew it was looking at her, and that I think she saw it 2 times, and both times it would shoot up into the attic. So whatever that thing was lived up there. But yeah, I really don't think it was human. I have no explanation for what it could be. I mean, some might say it was like a demon or something, but maybe it was a collection of all the energy from the house. I don't know, but it seemed to have some sort of conscience. I have no explanation. If anybody else out there has seen something like that, I would love to hear about it, because anytime I tell this story, which is not very often, I just get crazy looks because it doesn't seem real. So this is the house. This picture was taken back in the 90s, maybe 80s or 90s, before we moved in. We moved in the late 90s. But yeah, it doesn't look like a hospital, because hospitals then were different than hospitals now. It was normally run out of the doctor's home. So I don't know if you can see, but there are 2 front doors. So there's one here and then one here. So this, during our stay there, was we used as an apartment side, and then we lived on this side. But anyways, we actually had a postcard with a picture of the house on it. And in the picture, somebody had marked this window with an X. And then a woman, her name was Lulu, wrote on the back saying that she had marked the window where she first saw the light of day. So she was born like right there. So that kind of backs up my theory, I guess. that this side was used as like a doctor's practice, and then this side was probably where he lived. But yeah, it was a really cool house. The cupola up here, that's where the creepy smoke ghost thing lived. We also had the carriage barn here, which also had some really, really creepy, very negative energy, in there. That barn unfortunately collapsed during a snowstorm in like the early 2000s when we lived there. And the house does not look like this at all right now. It's in pretty rough shape, but there is a company restoring it as we speak. So hopefully sometime in the near future, it will look beautiful like this again.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I tried to record this and then I saved it to my drafts and went to go check it out, edit it, whatever, and the audio's all fucked. But anyway, basically I worked at a haunted Ulta for 4.5 years. The whole mall was haunted. It has been confirmed to me by security guards that worked there, and also my friend who at one point dated the head of security's son, and she got to see some videos that she probably wasn't supposed to see. But anyway, so let's get into it. So the first time I ever thought something weird was afoot was after close. You know, no customers were in the store. I was there with maybe 3 other people, including my store manager, and we're standing there closing down the registers, and I start hearing like someone walking around down an aisle and shuffling of products, like someone's shopping. And eventually I say like, hey, do you guys hear that? It sounds like someone's like shopping. And my manager goes, oh yeah, super casually. And she totally acknowledged it, which is hilarious because down the line, she just told me I was a silly goose for thinking it was haunted there. I'm like, girl, you heard the same shit I did. Well, at least, you know, some of the same shit, because some really weird stuff started happening after that. I guess to the employees I had talked to about it, were telling one of the stylists in the salon about like, oh, did you hear what Jamie said? And blah, blah, blah. And one of the mirrors on one of the little makeup stations just went flying off and broke. So I think that's a good omen, right? Like that's historically a great omen. And then another girl had also told me that she sometimes, like during early mornings before we were open, like during truck or planograms or whatever, that she felt some weird presence in certain areas. And I'm like, I'm going to block that one away in the old noggin, you know, try to remember these little details. But for the most part, people kind of laughed at me about this and made fun of me for thinking, you know, that a makeup store was haunted, which, listen, I don't care how new a building is. If the land has been there a while and witnessed a lot, it's going to hold on to that shit, okay? So in 2 ways. One night, I was closing down a register. I had 2 of my girls in front of me. They're just making fun of me for thinking it's haunted. And again, this is after we were closed. No customers in the store. And as they're standing there just taking jabs, their heads just whip around behind them. And I'm like, what happened? And they said, we just heard footsteps stomping behind us, coming up towards us. And I don't think I remember them making fun of me again after that. Isn't that crazy? The craziest things in my memory that happened there, I feel are kind of connected in a way, or at least kind of show what this thing maybe was capable of, or however you want to look at it, okay? So I had a friend there named Aaliyah, and she was one of the hairstylists. And I was back near the bathrooms one night, and I heard what I thought was her singing in the bathroom. And I'm like, that sounds like Aaliyah. So I'm walking around, and then I see her a few minutes later. I'm like, hey, were you singing in the bathroom? And she was like, no, but I do that sometimes when I'm alone. So you're telling me if it was her, she would have said, yeah, I do that sometimes. But it wasn't this time. So who was that? And that happened like later in during an evening. So there weren't a lot of people in the store. So that heaved my jeeves. But the most heebie-jeebie thing that happened, in my opinion, happened when I wasn't even there. So we had to wear these like little headset things to communicate to each other throughout the store. And sometimes we would get interference, you know, like from Victoria's Secret, because they were the same ones. But we could always tell that's what was happening. Like it was always obvious. It was always very staticky. You couldn't make out their words very well. And you could pick up on some keywords that, you know, made you realize Victoria's Secret. So one night I'm driving home, not at Ulta at all. I'm about 2 miles down the road, probably. And I get a phone call from one of the other managers, and she's like, hey, did you leave your headset on? And I was like, nah, girl, I'm almost home, and I have no headset. And she proceeds to tell me that my voice came over the headset. So apparently, one of the girls didn't realize I had left. So she gets on the headset like, hey, Jamie, where are you? I have a question for you. And my voice comes over the headset and says, come and find me, goofball. I always called this girl Goofy Goofball. That was like my nickname for her. And my voice said that to her when I wasn't there. And as soon as she told me this over the phone, my eyes were watering. I had full body chills. I was uncomfy, you know? It still creeps me out to think about. And it's been several years now. Because that means it mimicked two people's voices at that point. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what that fucking means. So yeah, that really happened. All of it. And it's weird as shit. And it was hard to get people to believe me. And then they started experiencing things and believing me. Because I'm not a fucking liar. Yeah, I may use my free time today to look into the history of the land. Because what?
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So my son was 1. And we put him to bed, as we typically did. And on a normal night, he would just go to sleep. He would lay down in his crib and go to sleep. But this night was a little different. We put him to bed, and a few minutes later, we hear him in his room just talking. Talking meaning babbling. He was 1. He didn't have a lot of actual words. But laughing, babbling, just not upset whatsoever. We didn't check on him because he wasn't crying. He wasn't saying like, Mom, or, you know, whatever. We just didn't feel like the need to check on him. This went on for like 45 minutes. Never upset. And then we heard him say, okay, bye-bye. And that was it. He went to sleep. And an hour later, we got a call that my grandmother passed away.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Okay, it's my time to shine. So basically, I grew up in a very haunted house. I had a lot of really scary, weird, crazy shit happen in that house that I still almost don't believe to this day because it's that out there. I'm not going to tell you the super scary ones right now because I'm home alone for the next few days, and whenever I start talking about the things that used to haunt me, and I do say haunt, like literally haunt, they kind of come back around for a little bit. So I don't really want to get into that right now, but I will in a couple days if you guys are interested. Also, this isn't my normal content, so don't follow me if you want more of this. I post about reading. I read books. So this happened to my mom, which makes it even crazier because I come from a family who is very aware of the paranormal, but it's also like, don't acknowledge it and it won't acknowledge you. Like, that's how my family is, at least. Everyone like fully believes in it, but also no one ever acknowledges or talks about it. And there's only been a couple instances where something was so crazy we had to tell each other, and this is one of them. So we have a saying with the women in our family, which is like, if you have a problem, sleep on it. Now that I'm older and there's like all these terms for all these things, it is like absolutely ancestral fucking dream witchery going on in my family. This has been like this my whole life, but just as recently as a few months ago, I started having dreams every single night, intense, vivid dreams that I was pregnant. And this one night, I was so convinced I was pregnant at this point. I was like, please, I was like, if I have one more pregnancy dream tonight, then I know for a fact I am pregnant. That night, I had a dream that my best friend came up to me and I took a pregnancy test and she handed it to me and it was positive and she was like, you're pregnant. I woke up the next day and I was like, my best friend's fucking pregnant. A week later, she tells me that she's pregnant. Then she asked me like, well, what do you think the gender is going to be? And she hadn't got her results back yet. And I told her, well, let me dream on it. So I kind of meditated on it. I went to sleep, and that night I had a dream. I could tell you about the dream if you want to know. And it was a boy. And then she had her gender reveal. It was a boy. It was very lovely. But all of my dream witchery shit, I get from my mom, who gets it from my grandma, who probably gets it from her lineage all the way fucking back to Adam and Eve, I guess. But my mom had a best friend. I grew up with her. She was my aunt. I love her. I want to change her name in this story, so I'm going to call her Nora. So my aunt Nora and my mom were best friends for years and years and years, and they met when my aunt moved down from like a more northern state down to my mom's home state, and that's how they met and became friends. And every year my aunt Nora would go on a road trip back to her hometown to like visit all of her family. And my mom, she had this really icky feeling about her, and she was like, I don't know if like, obviously, like, you need to go, but just be careful. I have a really bad feeling about you driving up there. Just be safe and, like, call me when you get there, all these things. And my aunt was like, well, we make this drive all the time. We're going to be fine, but I know that you're kind of, like, witchy and you're kind of weird, so I'll make sure to be careful, and I'll just call you when I get there. On the day that my aunt is driving up, my mom is, like, a workhorse. She is always working. She never gets tired, but this one day, my mom gets so incredibly exhausted. She's like, I have to go lay down. I have to take a nap. Like, physically cannot stay awake. So she goes in her bedroom, lays down, goes to sleep, and she wakes up in the back of my aunt's car. My uncle's driving, my aunt's in the passenger seat, my mom's sitting in the middle back seat, looking up in between them. My mom's entire body gets filled with this dread feeling from like head to toe, dread. And she leans forward, she grabs both the seats and she leans forward in between their heads and she starts looking between them and screaming, "Stop the car, stop the car." And she's looking at my uncle who's driving and she's like, "Johnny," I had to change his name, "Johnny, stop the fucking car, screaming at him. Obviously, she's dreaming, she's having a dream, so they're not hearing her. So my mom's yelling at them, stop the car, but then this like primal thing just takes over her, and she looks over at my aunt, she goes, "Nora, tell him to stop the fucking car," and she's like screaming, and then my aunt just kind of looks over and then slams her hand like on my uncle's chest and goes, "Johnny, stop the car," and he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Stop the car." He slams on the brakes, they're going through a green light at this intersection, and he slams on the brakes, stops at the green light, and as they're stopping, the semi-truck blows through a red light and just is like starts honking his horn and just completely barrels through the red light. And then my mom looks over at him, looks over at her. The two of them are looking at each other like, what the fuck? And then my mom's laying in bed and she just opens her eyes. She sits up, she's sweating, her heart's racing. She's like, and then her phone starts ringing. And she looks over, she grabs the phone, looks at it. It's my aunt. She answers it. And my aunt goes, "I think you just saved my life." And my mom was like, "I think I just saved your life." And then my aunt was like, "I heard you scream. I stopped the car because I heard you scream at me to stop the car." She's like, "You just saved my fucking life." And that's the story on how my mom saved her best friend's life. Through a dream. Oh, I have chills. I get chills every time I think about that because, oh my God. Oh my God. It's so crazy. And it makes you wonder, like, it just makes me think, what is real? What is real? What don't we know yet? I love this shit, man. If you have any stories, I have to know. Anyone who stitches this girl's videos, I'm going to be watching them. I love stories so much. I love ghost stories. I love dream stories, everything. Hi, remember this? I stitched this creator's video and I talked about some dream stories I had, and today I'm here to tell you my ghost stories. Even though I said I wasn't gonna make any more videos about this, I had so many people ask for more, so I'm gonna tell you more under the condition that you understand that this is the last time that I'm talking about this. But if you like me and you want to stick around to see what I'm gonna do next, I would really appreciate that. I just don't really like the people who post ghost stuff every single day because it doesn't feel believable at that point. Here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be a long one. We're gonna do 3 stories. We're gonna do a sweet, an unsettling, and then we're gonna finish it off with a scary. To set the scene, I'm 19. I'm living in a college apartments with my boyfriend and his 2 friends. We all 4 had our separate rooms, and I was an avid thrifter at the time. I still thrift, just not as much as I used to. I had gone thrifting a few days before, and I had gotten clothes and then a couple of knickknacks, and they were sitting on my sewing desk, which I had 2 desks because one of my roommates got a gaming desk and gave me his. So I had my school desk and I had my sewing desk. So on my sewing desk, I had a Goodwill bag with clothes and some knickknacks in it from Goodwill. One night I wake up in my room and I'm on my back, which I usually don't sleep on my back, but for this night I woke up on my back and the only sound in the room was the fish tank filter going, and I just had this kind of weird feeling. It wasn't scary, it wasn't dangerous or anything, it was just a feeling of like someone is in my room right now. So I reached over and clicked on my little fish tank light and lit up the room, and standing parallel from my desk was a woman standing there just looking at me. She was an older woman. She had like curly hair. Her face was completely full of wrinkles and she was really short and a little pudgy. Like, she just looked like an old woman. And she's just looking at me like this. So I scooch up on my bed and I'm like propping myself up like this and I start staring at her and she's staring at me, just kind of smiling just a little bit. And we're staring at each other for so long. And finally, in my head, I say, "What do you want?" She's just looking at me like kind of amused. And do you know when you ask like your mom or your teacher a question and they're like, "Come on, you know the answer," so they just kind of give you this look and wait for you to figure it out? So now that she's just looking at me, I'm starting to realize that, oh shit, there's just a woman standing in my room. So I look at her very intensely and in my head again, very loudly, I go, "What do you want?" Like trying to be forceful, I guess. So she starts to look away from me and she slowly just turns to look at my desk, and in my head I'm thinking, are you looking around my room? Like, do you want a room tour? Like, what's going on? And then in my mind, I don't even know how to explain it to you, I saw the vase I had just purchased at Goodwill sitting on a shelf by the kitchen sink in front of the window with a singular flower in it. At this point, I realized we're both still looking at the Goodwill bag, so I turned to look at her, and she's already looking at me, and she has this glint in her eyes, like she's so mischievous, like she's like, "Okay, like you're almost there, like come on, tell me." And I was like, in my head, "So you want me to like decorate with the vase?" And then her whole face just starts to like smile, and she gets like so happy, like I see all of her teeth, she's just so happy. And I was like, "I promise, like as long as this vase is in my possession, it will always have flowers in it. I will always be decorating with this vase." And then I open my eyes and I'm laying near face down on my bed with my hands up under my pillow, like just knocked out. And I just open my eyes and I literally go, "Huh." I roll over onto my side and I fell back asleep. But my reaction to the dream was so telling to me. This was genuinely just a woman who wanted to make sure that her base was going to be taken care of. And in case you're wondering, here she is. I keep plastic flowers in her 24/7, 365. But whenever I get a bouquet of flowers, I take one fresh stem and I put her in here. And she's decorated. She's front and center of my decorations. And I love her. We have a very special bond. Story number 1, sweet. And now we're moving on to story number 2, unsettling. I'm gonna set the scene again. I'm 18. I just went to college for 6 months. COVID shut it down. I'm moving back home. Moving back to my childhood home where so much fuckery is taking place. My mom was the manager at a gas station at the time and they were having staffing issues. So she was working 12, 14, 16 hours a day. It was absolutely insane. All of that to say, I didn't really see her the first week that I was home, but she had the weekend off. So on Friday night, so like I came home a week later on Friday night, she went over to a friend's house when she got off work and then she was gonna come home and see me after she was at her friend's. Wait, if you watched my last video, the friend that my mom was going to go see was my Aunt Nora from my previous story. Tonight was like any other night. I get ready for bed with my brother because he's a kid and doesn't want to brush his teeth. So we brush our teeth together. Then we read a story and we do these things. I take him to bed. I kiss him. My stepdad, his dad goes in, kisses him, say goodnight, whatever. My stepdad and I go downstairs. We sit in the kitchen and we chit chat and we talk and we catch up and we do all the things. We are all waiting for my mom to get home. We haven't seen her all week. So it's me and my stepdad and we're getting to catch up for the first time since I've been home from college. It's wonderful. But eventually it's after midnight and we're both getting tired. So I'm like, okay, I love you. Good night. Have sweet dreams. Like I need to go to bed. You need to go to bed and we'll just see mom tomorrow and you and I can just catch up more tomorrow too. So I go to my room and for some reason I just couldn't fall asleep. So I'm just literally sitting on the edge of my bed. I'm not laying down. I'm not sitting in my bed. I'm just sitting on the edge of my bed, like waiting for my mom to come home. I know it's annoying. A little more backstory. Eventually I hear my mom pulling up into the driveway and I can hear her and I know it's my mom because I've lived in this house my whole life. We live on a gravel road. Our driveway is gravel, and if you've ever lived in gravel, you know that you can tell who's pulling into your driveway by the sound that the tires make on the gravel. So I knew it was my mom's Jeep pulling into the driveway. My bedroom faces the road, faces the driveway, and is right above the porch and the main door, which leads into the kitchen. Now, my mom pulled into the driveway without her headlights on, which is not uncommon, but I did think it was sweet because I was like, oh, she still cares about me, even though I've been at college for 6 months. Because when someone would pull into the driveway when it was dark with their headlights on, it would shine through my room, light it up, and wake me up every time. So my mom and I are very similar in the fact that we need a second to like decompress. So I hear my mom on the porch. She shoves her keys in the lock. She opens it up. I hear the door handle turn, open, close. I hear her take her purse off, throw it on top of the microwave because the microwave was right by the door. She's extremely heavy footed. So she goes thump, 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 opens the fridge, which I didn't hear the fridge open, but I did hear shh, because she, like, every time she came home, she would pour a new glass of Dr. Pepper. So it was like a fresh 2-liter, like, shh. And the house was silent and we lived in a very quiet area. So I heard shh. And I was like, okay, she's getting her pop. She's like settling down. And I was like so excited. So I jumped out of bed. I snuck, my brother and I's rooms were attached. And so I'm like, and I snuck through my brother's room. I go around to go down the stairs. And so silently, I'm like, down the little stairs. And I grab the edge of, like, there were drywall stairs. And I grab the edge of the drywall and I whip around like this. And I go, hi, Mom. And I just stop dead in my tracks. Because when I looked into my kitchen, every single upper cabinet, lower cabinet, drawer, refrigerator, freezer were open. What's worse than that is that my skin got covered in this like sickly, like oily feeling, and I was like, okay, something's obviously not right here, but more than that, something's like really not right here. I'm a skeptic, okay? And people commented on my last video, like, I love when people lie on the internet, like, this is so fake, but, like, good story, though. It cracks me up because I am the biggest skeptic in the world. So my first thought was that my stepdad was rearranging the kitchen in the middle of the night. And we had, like, a building outside that he could have gone to for something. I don't fucking know. So I go outside to see my stepdad and be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But the door was locked. And I was like, okay, so if he's outside, the door wouldn't be locked. But I was like, I heard my mom. That's the scary part, is that I heard my mom come in. I heard her like heavy breathe, throw her purse, stomp around the house, open the fridge. I heard all of this. So I do what you're not supposed to fucking do. I turned the porch light on, unlocked the door, threw open the screen door, because I heard the screen door open too, I didn't mention that earlier, stepped outside, and I'm like squinting. I'm like, my mom's Jeep is not here. My mom is not here. But I'm still like, okay, maybe my stepdad is doing something. I don't know. So I go to sit in the living room to wait for my stepdad to come back from wherever he is, even though the front door was locked. I don't know what I was doing. And when I go into the living room, he's laying on the couch and he's snoring. Ever the fucking skeptic, I called my mommy and I said, hey Mom, like, were you just home? Like, did you need to pick something up and run back out? Like, I thought I heard you come home. And she was like, no, honey, I haven't left your Aunt Nora's, but I'm leaving really soon. Like, so excited to see you, love you, like all these things. She was like, is everything okay? And I was like, everything's fine. Don't even worry about it. I went through so quietly and I closed every cabinet, closed the fridge and the refrigerator, closed every drawer, and I turned around and I looked. I couldn't even remake this look, but I looked into my kitchen with this anger and I said, do not ever fucking do that again. I said, do not ever fuck with me like that again. If you want to say something to me, you come to me. You don't mess with my home. You don't mess with my fucking family. I was going off just like a ghost. I don't know. I went up the stairs, I went to sleep, and no one ever fucked with the kitchen again, at least while I was still living at home. Here's what we've done so far, and I gotta speed this up fast. Sweet, unsettling, scary. Time for the scary one. I don't want to talk about my scariest, so here's one that's just scary to me. I don't know if it'll be scary to you. I'm a teenager, I'm at home, I'm sleeping in my bed, and I'm cocooned under like 5 blankets because I always sleep with a lot of blankets. And yes, I am dreaming, and I come to, and I'm standing in the corner of my room, but I'm like floating. I'm not attached to anything. I don't really belong to anything, but my essence is there, and I'm looking around my room, and I see myself sleeping in my bed on my side facing the wall, as I always do, covered up with all of my blankets. And at the foot of my bed, I see a figure standing there with a long dress on and long hair. And even though I didn't have a body, I got so sick. Earlier I mentioned like an oily, sticky feeling across my skin. It was that times a million. I don't even know how to explain how disgusting my entire body that I did not own felt. And I watched this woman in horror reach down to my bed, grab my blankets, and rip them off of my body. I felt a jerk, and I was back into my physical body. My heart was racing, beating out of my chest. I felt my heartbeat all around my entire body. And there was this breeze over me, like something had just been pulled off of me. Windows were not open, and I didn't have like a ceiling fan or any kind of AC in my room at the time, but there was this breeze over me, like someone had just pulled a blanket off of me. I really think survivor's instincts kicked in because I did not react. I didn't roll over. I didn't say anything. I closed my eyes and I pretended to be asleep, and eventually I did fall back asleep. Next morning, all of my blankets were in a line on the floor at the foot of my bed, like someone had ripped them off of a table.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Oh, I've been waiting for this stitch. So growing up, I was obsessed with ghosts. My friends and I would play a Ouija board when we were in like, I don't know, 5th grade. We were psychopaths. And so when I was in high school, there was this abandoned and insane asylum. And my friends and I wanted to go and check it out because apparently when you would go inside, you couldn't breathe when you got to certain floors. Like it was just kind of psychotic. So we borrowed my friend's Ouija board that I played with all the time when I was a child. We bring it to this abandoned insane asylum, and it was really tricky getting inside, so we decided to stay on the front lawn. So we put out the Ouija board, and right when we put it down, our car alarm starts going off. And we're like, okay, we need to figure this out. Like, creepy, whatever. Get the car alarm off. We go back to our spot, lay down the blanket, we light candles, and we pray. And we start talking to this board. And we found out that the ghost was named Equajaw Lois, and it had killed its parents, and it was a child, and that's why it was at this insane asylum. And it was just getting really creepy, and we were like, all right, we should probably wrap this up. And as we say, like, can we go now? The board just like shoots to no by itself, shoots to goodbye, and the little triangle thing just starts spinning in the middle of the board like by itself, like so fast. We're all freaking out. We like throw the candles. I'm like, oh my God, I grab this board. I return it to my friend. We're all freaking out. And like the next weekend, because again, we're psychopaths, like, let's go play a Ouija board again. I asked her if we could borrow her board, and she was like, Riley, I don't have the board anymore. Like, weird stuff started happening in my house. Like, the garage door was kind of opening, the cabinets were shaking, like, weird stuff. And she's like, but you won't get this, you won't believe this. And I don't know if this part's true, because again, this didn't happen directly with me, but the person who she gave the board to put the board in a drawer like this and recorded it, and in the middle of the night, the drawer was just opening and closing by itself. So I have not touched a Ouija board since high school. Actually, it's a lie. I touched it one more time, but nothing really happened. But yeah, that is my ghost story, and I have many more if anyone is interested.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so when I was in high school,
My sister and I were staying up late. She was on the computer in the other room. And then there was another room in between us, and I was in my bedroom, and I had the door closed, and I was sitting on the floor with my back to the door. And all of a sudden, I heard footsteps, and I felt the footsteps because I was sitting on the floor. I could feel, like, the floor. It was an old house. I could feel it moving. And then I heard, like, a doorknob, which was right next to me. And I was like, what the heck? So then I get out of the room, and I look. There's nobody at the door. And then I looked down the hallway, and I saw a shadow figure. It was like a man, tall man, carrying a knapsack, walking through the kitchen. And my knees buckled immediately. And I ran to my sister, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, did you just hear that? She was like, yeah, I thought that was you. I was like, no, it wasn't me. I was like, somebody's in this house. So we grabbed a flashlight, and then we grabbed like some kind of random weapon that was like laying around, and we walked through the house, but we couldn't find anything. All the doors were locked, all the windows were shut. We were so freaked out. We woke up our parents, and they were so freaked out that we were freaked out. They looked around the whole house. They couldn't find anything. But to this day, I'm completely convinced that it was some kind of ghost.
So I swear that I'm being haunted. Okay, so this started when I was in pharmacy school, which started like maybe, wow, it's been a while, like maybe 5 years ago. I first had a dream that a woman, and I felt like it was a woman, crawled up in my bed and was like pressing down on my chest. Like tried to yell for my sister, nothing was coming out. Felt terrified, like absolutely terrified. All right, fast forward, I go with some friends to Nashville. We're staying in an Airbnb. My friend and I, Tyler, are sleeping in the living room on air mattresses, okay? Like our other 3 friends are in 3 bedrooms. Our air mattresses take up the whole space of the living room, and the front door's over there. So if someone was crossing through the living room to get to the front door, they would walk all over our air mattresses. That's important for later. So we go to sleep. I'm not sleeping well. I don't know if it's because I'm in a new place, but I'm like tossing and turning, and I sleep with my face covered. So I'm like tossing and turning, and I hear my friend Tyler say, "Taylor, what are you doing?" I assume he's talking about me tossing and turning, so I don't say anything. I'm like, I'm just trying to sleep. I don't say anything back to him. I just try to go to sleep because I wasn't sleeping. Anyway, the next morning, he's scrolling on his phone when I wake up, and I was like, how did you sleep? And he was like, I saw a woman last night standing at the door. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, I thought it was you. So I said, Taylor, what are you doing? But then I turned and you were still laying there. So I just rolled over and went back to sleep. And it's interesting to know there was another girl in the house with us. But like I said, if she would have came out and like walked to the front door, she would have walked over our air mattresses to get there, and it would have woke us up. So no way it was her. And I said, what if it was like an intruder trying to break into the house, or like a frogger who like, and he's like, no. Whatever that was not a person. I'm like, well, what did they look like? And he was like, she looked older, but like when I looked at her, I felt like I wasn't supposed to see her. And I wonder if that's why I wasn't sleeping well, because she was just standing there staring at us. I don't know. It really creeped me out. Anyway, fast forward again. I'm in a new house now. It had been a while since I had had any like weird things with this. I wake up and I remember someone whispering in my ear, and it was a woman. I don't remember what she said, but it was a woman. Then most recently, she crawled up on my bed again.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
My dad is one of the most haunted people I have ever experienced in my whole entire life. He is the main reason why I 100% believe in demons and the ghost world. My dad was literally getting strangled by his cross necklace by a demon. My brother had to walk in and save my dad's life. No joke. So at this time, we had this lab, and he was the sweetest dog in the whole entire world. Didn't bark, didn't growl, wouldn't hurt a freaking fly. But he would always growl, like this angry growl, into the closet. And slowly things started getting worse. There was one night that my dad's bathroom door was just slamming, like literally Paranormal Activity, like when they film in movies, just open, shut, open, shut, open, shut, open, shut. My dad walks into the bathroom, there's no one there. He turns out of the bathroom, the bed is right there, and there's literally, the sheets are levitating, and it goes, and then he feels the cold air on his legs. I'm not kidding. I lived with him at this time. My dad actually had this all recorded on a camera. Me, my brother, my mom all watched it. I don't know what happened to that recording. If I can maybe get it from him, I will see if I can show you guys. So my dad being that haunted, so much has like transferred over to me. I've had my own experiences without being with my dad. When me and my husband first started dating, he actually almost left me because there was a time when me and him were in the bedroom and then all of the pans just fell in the kitchen, and I went out there and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I swear I'm being followed by like a ghost or a demon or something. And he literally turned like pale white, and he said that was the only time I ever thought about leaving you. I actually have a message from my friend's older sister asking me to please share my experiences with ghosts. Because there was one night that I was staying over at my friend's house and I was laying in her bed. She had a Tempur-Pedic bed. She went to go change the laundry, and when she left, I immediately got like frozen. I couldn't move, and something laid next to me in her Tempur-Pedic bed and went right into my face, and I was paralyzed. I could not move, and then she walked into her room, and I just shot up and was like bawling and immediately called my dad. She can literally vouch for me. What sits really, really weird with me is we actually did a Ouija board at her house like way back before all of this like ghost stuff happened. But what really freaks me out is at that time that we were doing the Ouija board, I was a virgin, and I actually lost my virginity in her house in the bed that the ghost, like demon, whatever, breathed into my face. And I don't know what you know about like demons or like all of that, but like they attach themselves to like virgins and then like want sacrifices of virgins. And like, I don't know if that's anything, but it always freaks me out. Last thing I'm going to say is obviously I had like all of these demons, ghosts attached for me from like whatever. Well, a couple years ago, I became a Christian and I decided to get baptized. And that, like, for a lot of people to get baptized is like you see the light and you become this light person and like better, whatever. For me, I went through the worst spiritual warfare I have ever gone through in my whole entire life. I legit was fighting off demons in my dream. In my dream, I lived in this apartment and I had to go into every single room and fight off every single demon. One room there was twin demons, one room there was a tiny little demon, and then one room it was like the whole room was a demon. And in every single one I had to say, in Jesus' name, I command you to leave. And like, I remember the last one, like the one where he was like the whole entire room. I had to like hold on to the walls and scream in my dreams. And literally, this is just like scratches the surface. I'm going to make my dad make a TikTok to share all of his ghost stories because I feel like you guys would like eat it up. It's literally insane.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first. When I was...
Okay, ignore my hair and how sleepy I look. It's like 4 a.m. Anyway, so here's one for you. So about me and 4 of my friends, so 5 people total, were in this little house down the road where my grandmother grew up. And we always thought it was haunted, and there was a barn in front of it. It was a creepy old barn, and we thought it was haunted too. So we liked to snoop, you know, we wanted to go get spooked. We were snooped, and we got snooped and spooked. So getting to the spooking, we were snooping around, and, you know, I can see all of my friends. You walk into the house, the door I'm going to be talking about is on our right. We all walk past, go into the kitchen. It's me, 2 of my friends beside me, and I can see my other 2 friends to the left of me. So all my friends are here, and the door is up front to the left. So I'm facing the front. Okay, now, this is where it gets weird. A shadow flies across the room. I mean, it was a force. And then the door slammed. But there was a chair, a recliner that was propping that door open. So what had to have happened was the chair moved, door slammed, and then the chair got moved back in front of the door. And I've never been able to explain that. My only guess would be a squatter, but we would have seen them. It's a very small house. And the whole chair thing, it just, no. But that was the second encounter. The first encounter was at the barn across the road. This is all on a dead-end dirt road, by the way. So this barn we went to, we always thought it was haunted. We never really had proof. We just thought it was creepy. But one evening, me and my friend Dylan, other Dylan, we were in there, and, you know, I was antagonizing, and, you know, I was provoking, which you shouldn't do. And I heard a whisper. I thought it was a car driving down the road, the paved road. That's what it sounded like. But I listened back to the camera, and it's like a voice is whispering into the camera. I have it on camera, uploaded on YouTube. I could actually get the footage of this if anyone's interested and show you. But yep, had a disembodied voice speak to me, and a angry ghost slam a door and then move a chair. Cool stuff.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this is my Facebook ad paranormal investigation story. So I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I stumbled upon a Facebook group for people in the area who were into the paranormal. And someone had posted an ad that they were new to town and that they had done paranormal investigations in the past, and they were looking to do it again in Portland, and they were looking to get a team together. And I had never done that kind of thing before, but I've been interested in it my whole life. So I answered the ad and had some conversations with the guy, and he wanted me to come to his next investigation he was going to do with people he had already gotten onto his team. And so their next investigation was actually going to be in my neighborhood, basically, at this bar and restaurant. And I actually knew the owner, ironically. And it was going to be in the basement. I had never been in the basement, so that I thought that was going to be super fun. So I showed up there at like 11 o'clock at night and met with everyone. And they started setting up for the investigation. And I was watching what they're doing, and they were explaining everything, but I was new, so I was kind of standing off to the side out of their way. And so this basement was an unfinished looking basement. Dirt floor, wood support beams, like just open, unfinished. And like it was a huge basement with like different rooms and sections, and lots of dark, like spooky, not well lit corners and areas, weird shadows, and lots of, you know, old junk piled everywhere. It was because it was for storage for the restaurant, but also like above the restaurant were apartments, and so anyone up there had access to it, but like I don't think a lot of people like went down there because it was really spooky, and like everything down there was like covered with like years of layers of dust and stuff. Anyway, so the building I was in was built in the 1920s, like 1920, maybe even a little earlier. Sorry, I should have probably double checked before I posted this video, but anyways, you get the idea. So the story goes that the basement originally back in the day had a speakeasy in it, illegal gambling, and a fight ring, and then the apartments above were supposedly a brothel. Anyways, so the point is, so we're setting up for the investigation. And I'm standing off the side, and of course the whole basement just feels, you know, spooky and freaky. But there was one part in particular that was like kind of giving me weird vibes. And I told myself to knock it off. Like, even though I believe in that kind of thing, I try to keep a level head and debunk things and not pre-freak myself out. So I told myself, don't pre-freak yourself out without, fair cause. So that part of the basement, I didn't want to turn my back on it. That's what I kept feeling, is I did not want to turn my back on it. But I told myself, don't pre-freak yourself out. So I turned my back on it. And I was watching the guy and his team set up and talking with them and everything. Well, I kept seeing motion out of the corner of my eye in the part of the basement that I turned my back to. I kept sensing movement out of the corner of my eye. And every time I looked, of course, nothing was there. So finally, I sensed movement and I flipped my head around, and there's a wood support beam right there, and I see a shadow figure peeking out from behind the support beam. Basically all black, no facial features, and just the head and the torso peeking out from behind the support beam, which of course isn't even physically possible because of the width of the support beam. If there's an actual person behind it, you would see more of the body and everything. So it literally happened very quickly. It peeked out and then disappeared. And so I whipped my head back around and don't say anything. But one of the other guys whistles at me, and I look over and he goes, "Hey," and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I saw it too." And I'm like, "Oh shit. Okay." And so the thing is, I saw it several more times that night, and I ended up joining that investigation team, and I ended up going back to that basement a number of times, and I would see it each time, but in different places. And I ended up nicknaming it the Peekaboo Man. And I know that's corny, but it's because I never ever saw the full body. I only ever saw the head and torso, and it was always peeking out from behind things. So, yep. Hope that was interesting to you.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Alright, today's the day I tell this story. This happened 3 years ago, but I've honestly been so scared to tell this story because I don't want to attract whatever was in my home back into my life. That's how afraid I was. I also have video proof that I'll show you at the end, and I wanted to delete this video for a long time. I never look at it. That's how scared I was. So here's the story. So one day I was home and my mom was here, and she was in my spare bedroom. It was nighttime. I was in my room. I was about to get ready for bed, and I just hear this loud bang coming from my living room. So we both get out of the rooms at the same time, and we look down. Sorry, is this glare annoying? And we look down, and both of my dining room chairs are on the floor, and they're metal chairs, heavy metal chairs. So there's no way that they were gonna fall on over on their own. And I immediately knew that something wasn't right. I've had paranormal ghost experiences since I was a little girl, weird things happening that I've witnessed and heard. So I knew it was something like this. So has my mom. For some reason, we just attract these entities, which is interesting on its own. But back to the story, we're looking down, and I am just so scared. Immediately, I'm like, whatever this is in my home, it's very powerful, because to be able to knock down not only one, but 2 chairs that are metal, it was weird. So I go back into my room, just kind of shocked, and I'm like, I need to tell my friends what just happened. So I start recording a Snapchat video telling them what just happened, and I hear a loud scream. And so in my head, I'm like, why is my mom trying to scare me? And so as soon as I finish the video, I go into the room that she's in, and I'm like, why are you trying to scare me? And she's completely confused. She's on the phone with my brother, and she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you just screamed. And she's like, no, I didn't. And he's like, no, she didn't, Taylor. And neither of them heard a scream. Thank God I had that video. I play it back, and she's just dumbfounded. I am just completely absolutely scared shitless. And
And that's it. That's what happened. The next day I opened up all of the doors, all the windows in my apartment. I saged. I just wanted to get whatever evil entity was in my home out. And till this day, I haven't had such an experience again, which is great. But yeah, let me know what you think and what you think was in my home. And I just hear this big like crash, and I go out into my living room.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Which one do I choose? Growing up, I've always had like a sense or a sensitivity to this kind of stuff. Like I would see things, I could see shadow people, as I call it. I would sense things that you couldn't really see. But yeah, or if like I go into an antique store, like I hate it. I love it, but I hate it because like my hands start to tingle and like feel like they're on fire the whole time I'm in there. And like once I leave, it dies off and then it's gone. Can't explain it. I don't know. It's crazy. But this story that I'm going to talk about happened about 8.5 years ago. My husband and I at the time lived with his cousin who was our roommate. And then we got pregnant. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. We had gotten pregnant. And then so my oldest was 4 months old when this happened. And we all shared a little bedroom. My husband and my daughter and I, not his roommate. Obviously, that would be weird. But yeah, so me and my husband had our bed in the room, and then the room had a little sitting area on my side, and so that's where we kept her crib, everything like that. So one night we were sleeping, and I just remember I woke up and I looked at the clock, and it was 3:01 in the morning, and it was super dark in the room, and I'm just laying there trying to go back to sleep, and then all of a sudden I feel like the air in the room gets like really thick. I get the sense of like heaviness in the room, and I know what that means when it happens. So I start to look around, and then I realize I can't move anymore, and I'm like, oh crap, okay. And I'm looking around the room, and off in the corner by the door I see this like tall 8-foot shadow, very ominous feeling, and he starts not walking but like floating almost towards the bed, and then he starts floating. I say he because that's the sense I kind of got from it. And then he starts floating towards my husband's side of the bed, and my husband's just still asleep, and I'm just watching this whole thing because I can't move, so I'm just watching it go down like holy crap. And it goes down and like hovers over his face, and then it comes back up, and it starts floating back to the foot of the bed, and then it starts going like across the foot of the bed. And I notice it, and I see it start to hover towards where my daughter is in her crib. And so like mom instincts come out, and I can't talk, but I think this, and in my head I'm like, don't you fucking mess with my baby. And it could like hear my thought, because as soon as I said don't fucking mess with my baby, or as soon as I thought that, it like cocked its head towards me, and then its body shifted towards me, and it starts coming towards me, and I'm just laying there like crap, 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 like move, get up, like move, 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 and I'm just laying there, and it gets to my side of the bed, and then my side of the mattress goes down, and I'm sitting there, and then I shut my eyes, and it starts hovering over me, and I'm just like move, and eventually I don't know how, but I'm able to turn into my husband's arm, and I'm like squeezing the shit out of his arm, and I'm just like, go away, go away, go away, go away, leave us alone. And I could have sworn I was there for like 5 minutes, and then eventually I feel like the heaviness go away, and I kind of like slowly like open my eyes and like get up, and I look, and it's still 3:01 in the morning. But yeah, so that's one story I have. If you want to know more, I have plenty, so just let me know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
Hi, my name is Katie. I have never done a TikTok before. Probably won't ever again. This trend is meant for me and my haunted house, which I'm sitting in right now, so don't get mad. Yeah, so my husband and I moved into this house, I want to say like 4 years ago. We just re-signed for the 4th time. and we had been here for like a week at most, and things had been like a little bit weird, but I've always like kind of had weird experiences in places that I've lived, so it wasn't anything strange or like out of the ordinary. And my husband has always been like a huge skeptic, so he was like, this is fine, whatever. This house is like over 100 years old. I think it was built like in the late 1800s, so you know, it comes with the territory. But the story that I want to tell is like the most insane thing that has ever happened to me. My husband and I were asleep in bed, and of course it was like 3:30 in the morning, and our doorbell started going off in sets of 3, like ding, 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 and then it would be quiet for like an extended period of time, like 3 to 5 minutes. And the first time it went off, I was like, okay, maybe I dreamt that, and then it happened again. And so I like pushed my husband awake, and I was like, hey, did you hear that? And he was like, yeah, we're ignoring it. So it just like kept happening, and it started happening like more frequently, with like smaller amounts of time in between. So eventually I was like, I'm gonna go look. Like, we live in the city, maybe somebody is ringing it, they need help, whatever. Like, we're in a very populated area. I just kind of assumed that like it was a person. So we live on the first floor, and when you look out the window of our front door, you can see straight to the front because it's all glass. So I like peeked through the little slitted blinds, and there was nobody there. So I was like, okay, maybe they moved on to the next house, whatevs. So I went back into the bedroom, and the second that I closed the door to the bedroom, it started going off again. And at this point I was getting irritated because I was like, I want to go to bed. I want to be asleep. So I'll show you because it's hard to explain otherwise. Our window in the front room like looks directly out onto our porch, and the doorbell is like right around this corner right here. So like if somebody's ringing the doorbell, I should be able to see them if I open up this window. So I was getting irritated, and I was like, you know what, whatever. And I flung this curtain back, and the second that I did that, it started going off incessantly, like so needless to say, we like disconnected our doorbell and have not connected it since. We've lived for 4 years without a doorbell. Yeah, so that's the craziest thing that's happened to me in this house. I have like, there've been other things that have happened. None of them that violent. I mean, that's not violent, but like crazy. Yeah, I did wake up to a man like standing over my bed once, a ghost man. So that's also a fun story. But yeah, thanks for listening. Bye. Hi, I'm back to talk about the ghost man and other things. Wearing a different outfit, ignore that. So I thought because the ghost man story is like super short that I would tell you my theory about this house, and then I would tell you like 3 or 4 things that have happened here that are like small and not their own whole, you know, story. So my theory on this house, like I said, it's super old. I think that when we moved in, the spirits here were like a little bit peeved about like having new inhabitants. So there was like a lot of activity when we first moved in. It has slowly like died down. Nothing really happens anymore. It's more just like little things like my dog like interacting with things that we can't see, like seeing things out the corner of our eyes, that sort of thing. Nothing like, I don't know, big. But when we first moved in, I think again, like they were peeved, so there was a lot more activity. So that's when like the doorbell happened. Me waking up to the ghost man happened when we first moved in. So what happened was I was alone in the apartment, shocker, as it always is, when these kind of things happen. And again, it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I woke up and there was like a man standing over my bed, and I thought it was like a man, like a person had broken in and was standing over my bed. And I freaked out, and fight or flight kicked in, and I went to fight, and I went to grab him, and he disappeared. But like I can still see his face in my head. Like he was wearing a windbreaker. Like I felt like it was a real man. it wasn't, I was fully awake. It wasn't like a lucid dream or whatever you call those. Like, I woke up and there was a man standing over my bed, and he disappeared when I went to grab him. Like, disappeared into thin air. So that's really the story on that. It hasn't happened since. It has happened to me at my parents' house with like a different person being over me, but I know for a fact that place is haunted, so that's another story for another day. Yeah, freaky. Another thing that has happened is that I swear when we moved in, I got pushed down the stairs in the back. My husband doesn't believe that. He thinks that I just fell. I felt like a push from behind, and next thing I knew, I was like at the bottom of the stairs. But again, that was at the beginning when we first moved in, so I feel like the spirits or whatever were feeling like a little bit peeved. That hasn't happened since. Again, I have fallen down the stairs since, but different. And then the last thing that I think I want to talk about is, I kind of have to show you this one. So my husband has an Apple Watch, and he sleeps with it like on his nightstand, and he keeps, during the day, he keeps his charger like this. Like there's a drawer right here. He keeps it so that he can like grab it at night, otherwise it gets lost in the ether. And I was sitting in the living room, and I was hearing like this sound. And I couldn't figure out what it was. I'm walking around the apartment. I'm like, maybe it's the upstairs neighbors. Maybe it's something else. And I finally figured out, that's my dog crying in the background, ignore that, that it was this. And it was like doing that, like super slow, not like as if a gust of wind had come in and pushed it. The windows were closed. The fan was off. Air purifier was off. I don't really know why it was like that, but it really freaked me out. And that was actually really recent. That was like in the last couple months. But yeah, that's really all the exciting stories I have. So the end.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So my birthday is the day before Halloween, and last year me and my fiance decided that we would take a road trip the weekend before because my birthday was like on a Monday. So we wanted to go somewhere that was kind of like we haven't been before, but also like good for fall foliage and like just things to do. And we live in Western New York, and we didn't want to go too far. So we decided that we would go to Ithaca, New York, which is just beautiful in the fall. But we wanted to stay somewhere like sort of outside of Ithaca so we could like drive in and enjoy the road trip part. So we looked at hotels, and we didn't really find anything that was in our budget. And we've never done an Airbnb like booking before, and we decided maybe it's time to look into that. So my fiance downloaded the app, and she found a couple properties, and we were kind of talking back and forth. She was sending things to me, and we decided on this place that was in Seneca Falls, New York, which is about like an hour from Ithaca. So when we get there, there are people that are staying in the other apartment in this building. So it's just like a white house, but there's someone staying in the front apartment, like a family, and we feel a little bit better because we've never booked an Airbnb before and stayed in one. We've never been to Seneca Falls. We've seen Barbarian, so we're just like, at least there's another family here. We walk in. You can tell that the place is a little bit older, but the bedroom area is like refurbished, and it looks a little bit newer and like doesn't have like the old kind of smell like the rest of the house does. So we kind of put our stuff down, and then we go to look at the rest of the house, but it's really fucking weird. So when you walk in and you go to the right, there's like a little hall that leads into the kitchenette where there's like a couch and a really big TV. But in that hall, that's like, it's like part of the bathroom. So there's a shower on the one side of the wall, and then the other, there's a sliding door that leads you to like the sink in the bathroom, and then that room has another door that's accessible from the bedroom. So we're just like, this place is weird, but we vibe with it. So we decide we want to go to the store, make something for dinner in the kitchenette, and just kind of have a, a chill evening. So later that night, we're cooking dinner and we're watching cartoons, and we decided we wanted to watch a horror movie. So I'm like, I'll go turn all the lights off. We'll make it fun. So I leave one lamp on in the bedroom area, and it's like, it's so far away from the rest of the house that like once you walk in through that like weird shower room, the light is only really illuminating part of that hall room, and then it doesn't really reach us, but it's kind of like a night light, like just, extra little protection. And then there's a sliding door that separates that weird shower hallway from the kitchenette. So I'm like, I'll close it like halfway, a little bit more than halfway, and that way we get some of the light from the hallway. We can kind of see into the bedroom, but we're still in darkness. So I sit down, and the last light is the lamp that's next to me. I turn it off, and we start watching the movie. Mind you, all of the windows and the blinds are like closed and drawn, so there's really no noises coming from outside. And the people that are in the other apartment, like, you can occasionally hear them if they're laughing or talking really loud. It seems like they're like playing a card game because there's some laughing and like shouting going on. But once we have the TV on and there's like a movie on, you can barely hear it. Like, it's like kind of like they're down. It's like when you hear someone down the hall, you know, it's like you can hear it, but since there's doors and windows closed, it's very, very muffled. So we start watching this movie, and like out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing underneath the doorway, there's like this shadow, like some of the light that's reflecting on the floor is being overtaken by darkness, and it's like just faintly, and it's walking like it's pacing back and forth. Like, I don't know if it's walking, I don't know what it is, but it's just like going back and forth underneath the doorway. And then I can also, like, when I actually look up, because you know, when you see something and you just kind of ignore it, I'm trying to ignore it, but when I look up, it's like on the corner of the door, there's this other blackness kind of encroaching. It's like you can't see the edge of the door frame. Like, that's partially closed because this blackness keeps coming in. So I'm kind of just trying to ignore it. I shouldn't be ignoring it, but I am. And then in my ear, I'm hearing like this whispering, and I don't really remember the words that they're saying. I know one of them was leave, but it's just like like very, very weird noises and words all kind of mumbled in my ear. I just keep hearing this mumbling, and I'm like, this is strange. So I don't say anything because it's over here. My fiance is on this side of me, and I don't want to freak her out. So we continue to watch the movie, and then whatever was whispering in my ear must have been pissed that I was ignoring it, because right in front of my face, like right in front of my fucking face, it shouts like, get out, like very, very drawn out. So I'm frozen because I'm like, this something is like right in front of me, shouting at me to get out. And it was in my ear trying to tell me to leave, and I didn't listen to it. And I immediately look at my fiance, like when I can move my head, and I'm like, did you hear that? And she's like, no. And I'm like, the window is closed, right? And she's like, yeah, like everything, like, you know, the whole 9 yards, trying to debunk it. So then I don't know how, but I managed to, you know, be like, can I turn this light on, and like reach my hand out to the darkness. And my fiance was immediately on board with it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe something is freaking her out, or maybe I'm freaking her out. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to turn this lamp on. So once I turn the light on, I feel a little bit better, but it's still just like, what was that? You know, like I'm still thinking about it. It's like, it's, you know. So we finished the movie, and then I'm immediately like, okay, time to go to bed. And I'm like in the bedroom because I just cannot be there anymore. So once we're in the bedroom, I think I might have said something like, yeah, there's like something talking to me, something yelled at me, or just a very simple explanation of why I was so afraid. But I didn't want to scare my fiance. I didn't want to, you know, have to like make us leave. So I don't know how I managed how. We must have had some kind of melatonin, but I zonked out once we were in bed. So the next day, we're kind of like, I want to talk about it more, and I'm trying to bring it up. And we get ready, we don't really talk about it. And then once we're in the car, we have a good opportunity to kind of like talk about what happened. So then I finally say, okay, here's exactly what happened. It yelled at me, like it didn't want us here. It told us to get out. It was right in front of my face, yelling at me. There's no mixing that up with anybody that's in the other apartment, because it was right in front of my face, and it sounded very gruff and wispy and like angry. So then my fiance goes to say, oh yeah, well, you know how like, and I must have forgot to say this, but she got up at one point when the lights were still off, bless her soul, and went and closed that sliding door all the way. So she tells me, yeah, you know, I got up and closed that door because I kept seeing things like peering around the door frame and looking at us. And I'm thinking like, okay, I saw the exact same fucking thing. And it makes sense that it would have been pacing and looking at us, because if it doesn't want us here, it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? So once we talk about it, we just erupt into this whole conversation about like, oh my God, like we were encroaching on this like ghost's territory.
And it wasn't really like, I was really excited because we've had like paranormal experiences before. We've been ghost hunting, but like never anything that crazy. So we're in the car, we're talking about it all day. And then on the way home, we're kind of like, do we even want to really stay here? Like, it's really angry that we're here. And it's not so much that we're scared. It's more like we are encroaching on its territory and it's angry and like, who knows what could happen. So we decide to leave early. So we go back after our day out and we pack our stuff and we kind of gather all of our things. And I'm really avoiding that kitchen area because I can just feel like, even with the window open, it's darkness and like just scary in there. We go to leave and I'm obviously like, I'm sorry that we stayed here and, you know, invaded your space. And we were looking in the guest book and no one had said anything about anything weird happening to them and everything. So I really fought the urge to write something that was like, we had someone else staying here with us. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to scare anybody. So I don't really know how old the house was. I have no idea if anything significant happened there or, you know, what kind of renovations went on and all that. But whatever was there was just angry, wanted to be left alone, and didn't really enjoy us sitting on the couch watching horror movies and, you know, eating snacks. So I have a lot of stories to share, but I thought that one was really interesting because it's not the typical, like, I live in this haunted house and whatever. More so, like, I thought I was going to have a chill weekend for my birthday, and I was super wrong because the veil was very thin, and whatever was there was very unhappy. Only thing I have left to say is we have not stayed in an Airbnb since, and I'm kind of afraid to do that again if it's just a regular house because I don't want to be encroaching on someone's territory, so... Thanks for watching.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I don't know how crazy or unbelievable my story is, but it really happened, so I'm just going to tell it. Back in 2004, I was stationed in Ramadi, Iraq with the 2nd Battalion, 11th Marine Regiment, which was an artillery unit based out of Camp Pendleton, California. During our time there, we served as convoy security from Ramadi all the way to Baghdad for various convoys. That was our mission while we were out there. The base we were sent to was called Junction City. This was an Army, Marine, Navy compound that was across the river from the city of Ramadi. And the base we're on was a prior Iraqi police compound that we had taken over. So it was a pretty big base, you know, several miles around the outside, you know, high razor wire fences, outpost, artillery to respond to incoming fire, things like that. But several thousand troops stationed there. And so this was, again, 2004. And if you remember 2004, the Iraq War was very hostile. It was a very big year for combat. April of that year, there was a big battle in the city of Ramadi. And then in December of that year, Operation Phantom Fury is when we took the city of Fallujah itself. And that was during the time period I was there in Iraq. So just to give some background of when I was there. So to get to my story, back then when you wanted to call home, and I don't know what the protocols are now or how things go now, but when you wanted to call home, you had to go to a phone center. These were typically rooms that had about 20 phones in them that people would sign their name and wait in line. Typically, each phone call was allowed 15 minutes. So when someone came out, they'd call the next name on the list and they'd say, hey, so-and-so, you're up. And you'd go in there and you'd punch in a calling card number that you had prepaid minutes, and then you'd call home. And you'd have 15 minutes to call as many people as you could or just stay on the phone calling home, right? So I had made a routine that at 2 a.m. I would go and make my phone calls because 2 a.m. Iraq time was like 5 p.m. back home, something like that, you know, but nighttime there was daytime here, you know, type of thing. So I wasn't waking anybody up. And also the base, everyone was sleeping at night. So those phone centers were much less busy because nobody was trying to wake up at 2 a.m. to call home more often than not. So I had a 1-year-old son at the time, and I just wanted him to hear my voice. You know, you just never knew when your last day could be out there. So I wanted to call as often as I could, you know, just to give peace of mind to my family that everything was okay, even if it was for a 1-minute phone call. And so I'd have my alarm set for 2 a.m. every day. And at 2 a.m., I'd wake up, I'd grab my rifle, sling it over my shoulder, and begin my walk a couple hundred yards to this Army phone center to call home. And so to make this walk, you'd have to walk across this open field. You know, there was some grass, but there was no obstructions in this field. It was an open field, desert type of environment. But other than that, there was nothing across these fields, just a worn out path from hundreds of Marines and soldiers, you know, walking back and forth between the barracks and the phone centers. And obviously, you know, you're in a time of war. You're not walking with flashlights or things like that. And the only light there was the moonlight, which in the desert was more than enough. It's plenty bright. It always seemed like it was a full moon, never a cloud in the sky. So I'm making my walk. I'm making my walk across this couple 100-yard journey from my barracks to the phone center. And I'm looking at the ground. I'm looking at the ground, not paying attention, just kind of looking at my next step, looking at my feet, staring at the ground, just thinking about who I'm going to call or, you know, things like that. Well, about halfway there, I run into somebody like physically shoulder to shoulder and I get knocked back. I get hit shoulder to shoulder and I say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm immediately feeling like, oh my God, who did I just run into? Who did I, you know, I'm an idiot. I'm staring at the ground. And I reach for this person's like uniform to grab something to keep them from falling. But there's nobody there. And I'm looking and there's just no one there. And so I freeze with my arms up, like grabbing. And I'm listening for like somebody rolling in the grass or somebody stumbling, but there's nobody there. And I sit there for another 10, 15 seconds. I even say hello, and there's no one there. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time because now I'm kind of like embarrassed. I'm like, I wonder if somebody is watching me like talk to myself in this open field. So I just continue walking. So I walk another 100 yards or so and I get to the phone center. And when I get there, the door is padlocked and there's a sign on the door that says, this phone center is out of service until further notice. So for those who were out there, who were deployed, or for those who don't know, when that happened, it was typically because there were casualties on the base that particular day or the day prior or recently. And they shut the phone centers down as a way to make sure the news of the fallen soldiers or the Marines doesn't get back to the next of kin before they could do it properly. And so it was a common thing in 2004. It seemed like every other week the phones were down 3, 4, 5 days at a time, which, you know, isn't a big deal if you're considering the alternative to being one of those casualties. And you completely respected those families and your phone call, you know, minor inconvenience, but you would always, your heart would always be with those families who were getting that news about their loved ones. So the phone center was closed, which it often was. And so I'm walking back, you know, mild inconvenience that I wasn't able to make my phone call, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what if the person I ran into, the spirit that I ran into, was a soldier, Marine, sailor who was going through their routine still of calling home, and they didn't realize that they had passed. And that's who I bumped into that day or that night on my way to make my phone call. And I've never forgotten that. And sometimes it gives me chills thinking about. I never pinpointed the day. I never pinpointed who the casualty might have been. But yeah, that's what happened to me, and it was very real, and it happened. So there's my story.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
A couple of years ago, my mum asked me to stay at her house to look after her dogs. So I agreed. I rang my friend and was like, come over, stay with me, we'll chill, we'll look after the dogs, and then we'll go and do something the next day. That night, we get into bed, and my friend feels something touch her shoulder. I go straight into gaslight mode because I'm like, look, nothing's touched your shoulder. You're just being silly, forget about it. The main reason I did that was because I didn't want her to be scared. I didn't want to be scared. I didn't live at my mum's and I just wasn't feeling that energy. I didn't want to be involved in it. That night I had the most bizarre dream. I had a dream that I got dragged down the stairs of a 7-foot shadow, and my friend who was staying with me that night was stood at the top of the stairs watching me. Once it dragged me to the bottom of the stairs, it stood up and it must have been over 7 foot tall, 8 foot, 9 foot, easily. Black shadow. It terrified the life out of me. I bolted up the stairs. I grabbed my friend, I got in bed. The next day I woke up and I was debating in telling my friend, and I thought I best not because she was scared the night before, so I'll just leave that dream out. I went to uni, my friend had a baby, we lost contact. Once I come back, it was around Christmas time, my friend was like, do you want to meet up, do you want to catch up? I'm like, sure. I go around to her house with a couple of drinks and this night comes into question. She asked me, do I remember somebody touching her shoulder that night or something? And I was like, yes, I do. I said, and funnily enough, I had the most bizarre dream. And I went on to tell her about this dream. As I was telling her about this dream, the colour literally drained from her face. And I looked at her like, what's up with you? And she said, Jordan, let me stop you there. I had the same dream, but you was being dragged down the stairs and I was stood at the top watching you. She said, once you hit the bottom, this black figure stood up and was 7, 8, 9 foot tall, and you bolted up the stairs, you grabbed me and we went to bed. To this day, I do not know if that was a dream or if it really happened and we were that traumatized we made ourselves believe it was a dream. I've had a lot of strange things go on in my life, but that by far is the scariest thing.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So I've already told the story before, but I'll say it again because it's honestly kind of my Roman Empire and I think about it a lot. So back in high school, I obviously lived with my family and I had my own bedroom. And I had a vanity, like for makeup, set up right across from my bed. And I had this square mirror right across from my bed. But you couldn't actually like see yourself in the mirror when you're sitting in the bed because it was a little bit too high. So like if I were sitting in my bed like this and I would look in the mirror, all I would see is just a part of the wall on the ceiling. Anyways, at that time in my life, I was really into digital art. So one night I was just sitting on my bed like this and like drawing something like on my computer. And that night I felt like drawing something really creepy. So I drew this like classic scary girl, like long black hair, white bloody dress, missing limbs, like one missing eye, like very uneven body and facial proportions, you know? And so I was like almost done with the drawing and then my sister runs in. Keep in mind, I'm like sitting in my bed against the walls and my laptop is like this so she cannot see what I'm drawing. And my sister was like 5 or 6 at the time. We have a really big age difference. And she really likes looking at my drawings usually, so she asks me to, you know, show her what I was doing. And I tell her, no, I'm not showing you this one because this one's really scary and you're gonna get traumatized because you're a literal child. And she gets like really upset about that, so she's like, no, like please show me. And I'm like, no, I'm not showing you. So she gets like kind of upset and so she pretends to leave and then she turns around and runs back and like snatches my laptop out of my hand before I could even react. And keep in mind, this child is scared of anything. Like she refused to sleep with the lights off. She also could never be alone in a room, you know? And so I'm like, oh no, like she won't be able to sleep at night and my mom's gonna yell at me and blah, blah, blah. But she looks at the picture and she goes, Valeria, this is not scary at all. And I'm like, huh? And she continues, yeah, this looks just like the girl in your mirror. And points to the mirror across from my bed. And I like refuse to believe her. I'm like, there's no way. Like this child has a crazy imagination. She's definitely making it up, right? Like, okay, you have a crazy imagination. I'm gonna like talk to you about it. Let's see how far you can go. Cause that was kind of like my testing thing to see when she's lying and not. Cause when she lies, she goes into like these narratives. Like she's like a story writer, you know? So I'm like, do you see this girl often? She goes like, kind of. Like, it doesn't seem like she's lying, but I'm like, there's no way. So I'm like, okay, like, do you guys talk to each other? And she goes, yeah, like, she says things. And I'm like, okay, like, so, like, she's lying. She's, like, going on about this. There's no way this, like, if there was a ghost in the mirror or something like that, like, there's no way it would talk to my little sister, right? And I'm like, okay, like, what does this girl say to you? And my sister looks at me and goes, I don't know. She only spoke English. English is not my family's first language. And when my sister was 5, she did not speak a word of English. So I was convinced. My sister definitely saw this girl in the mirror, and she was there occasionally, apparently. And people say that kids are, like, better at seeing things like this. So I was like, okay, anyways. I still didn't tell anyone about the story because I was scared that my mom's gonna yell at me for showing my sister a scary picture. So I just kind of kept it to myself. I was like, okay, we're good. We're done. No one's talking about this. Didn't stop there, though. Like, a few months later, I had a friend come over to my house for a sleepover, just like a girls' night, nothing crazy. I completely forgot about my, like, sister situation. Everything's normal. We're just doing, like, regular sleepover things. And the night comes, we go to sleep, and obviously, like, I have one bed in my bedroom, so my friend and I are, like, sleeping next to each other. And this friend also hates horror. She was, like, so scared of anything to the point where she refused to watch any horror movies, refused to go to any Halloween attractions. Like, she, like, did not like going outside during Halloween because she was scared of the decorations. Like, she was spooked by little noises, you know? And so I'm always used to, like, calming her down. I'm like, no, like, it's fine. It's, like, just the house settling. Don't worry. Like, it's probably a bird. It's a bat, whatever. This night, both of us go to sleep, right? Because it's a sleepover. Then, in the middle of the night, my friend wakes up. But she wakes up to the point where she, like, jumps up off the bed. And it wakes me up. I'm literally getting goosebumps saying this, okay? And she's staring in the direction of the mirror across from the bed, right? And I see this, and I'm, like, half asleep. I'm like, what is happening? But she's acting so odd. Like, she is not acting like herself. So I'm, like, very hesitantly, I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? I'm like, are you okay? And she points at the mirror and goes, can you shine a light? Can you shine a light there? And I'm like, I was terrified at that point. My friend is scared of anything. If she sees anything in the mirror, like, she would be crying, hiding, running, I don't know. But she's just sitting there, not acting like herself at all, pointing at the mirror like this and saying, shine a light. So I'm like, okay, like, I pick up my phone from the floor. I'm like, there's no way there's anything in the mirror. There's no way. So I shine a light at the mirror. There's nothing there. You just see a wall and, like, a part of the ceiling that's, like, reflecting in the mirror. And my friend goes, okay, and just falls back down on the bed and goes to sleep. And I'm too scared to ask her what she saw in the mirror to the point where she wanted me to shine a light there. So I decided to try to fall back asleep and just ask her about it in the morning. So I do exactly that. It took me a while to fall back asleep after that. So next morning I wake up and I ask her, like, hey, what was that all about? And she goes, like, what was what all about? She did not remember getting up at night. And I'm like, okay, like, that maybe that sometimes happens with sleepwalking, you know, like, when you sleepwalk and the next morning you don't remember. But also, she's not known for sleepwalking. Like, it's not a regular thing that she does. And I also never told her, like, the story about my sister or anything. Like, I never showed her the picture of, like, the drawing that I did, nothing. And so since she didn't remember what happened, her getting up and asking me to shine a light, I had to tell her what she did. And she's like, that's so not like me. Like, it's not something I would do. I'm like, I know. So we continue hanging out that day, and it's been, like, a few hours pass by, and then she goes, Valeria, I remember my dream. I'm like, yeah, what was it? She says there was a girl in the mirror, like, in her dream, who needed our help. And she's like, that's probably why I asked you to shine a light, because the girl, she needed help. The girl in it, like, she needed help. It's really weird that she saw the same thing that my sister did, that both of them saw a girl in the mirror. And my friend said that she doesn't, like, fully remember how the girl looked like, but she had black hair. I never showed her the drawing. I never showed her anything. And I don't know, maybe it's a coincidence, but it's too perfect. And at other sleepovers, I had my friends tell me that they would see, like, weird shadows in my room. And one time my friend saw a shadow standing over me at night. And I still don't know how and why that was. So if any of you know what this girl in the mirror could be, like, let me know. I'm just happy I don't live there anymore.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
This happened either when I was 16 or 17. It was the summer in between either my sophomore, junior year, or junior and senior year of high school. So myself and 3 of my girlfriends had gone to our friend Amanda's house, and Amanda lived in this bi-level house where you walk into her home and you're on, like, the landing where you could go upstairs to, like, the kitchen and the formal living room, or downstairs towards, like, the laundry room and then this little den area. So her brother was upstairs. Her little brother was probably like 12 at the time, and and he was upstairs watching TV on the couch, and then we were downstairs in this den area hanging out in her home. And it hit a point in the night where Amanda had always told us about these ghost stories, or this man that was in her house. She thought that it was like an old, like, Revolutionary era soldier. We grew up in a part of New Jersey that is pretty historic, but I remember the visual of thinking of him, and he wasn't Revolutionary era war soldier, but I don't know, like, I don't remember the details of that at this point. But at some point she said, okay, do you guys want to play a Ouija board? And myself and my friend Michelle were like, no, we believe enough to not fuck with that, but it's your house, Amanda. If you want to play, you and Laura can go play in the other room. So Michelle and I stayed in the den, and our friend Amanda and our other girlfriend were in this little you know, kind of like corridor area. It was like the den was an addition, so it was like a long strip on the side of their house, and at the end of that strip, or that little like entryway, if you will, from the backyard, was like a glass door that had panes on the window that looked like this. Where it was like, it had like those slats in it. So Michelle and I are just hanging out in the den. We're a little creeped out, but we're like, listen, like, I don't like have any association with this. They're playing with the Ouija board. We are not. Like, don't let anything attach to me or you think about me, whatever. Don't acknowledge me. And so like about 25-30 minutes go by. They don't pick up anything with the Ouija board. So they come into the little den area where Michelle and I are. They start talking about what we're going to do next. So we decide to go to Wawa, as all New Jerseyans usually do at 10 o'clock at night during the summer. And as we're making this decision, we hear a like thud that sounded like glass, like a hand smacking up against glass or something smacking against glass. So we leave the den area and look at the door that was in that little like corridor area. We didn't hear her brother. Her brother was like nowhere to be found. And we see this massive man's handprint in the center pane of glass on the, I have the chills thinking about it now, on the actual glass door. The reason we knew that it wasn't her little brother just playing a prank on us was because it wasn't smudged. It looked like it could have been, but I remember that Amanda had gone up and checked it, and it was like actually like you could see the outline of like fingerprints, and it was like an actual full-size hand, not just like her little brother fucking with us because you're playing with a Ouija board. I feel like after going down the rabbit hole, this ghost story is a little bit mild compared to a lot of the other ones, but I just wanted to be able to contribute my story because it did really freak us out at the time, and I did not want to drive home. Amanda always used to say that she used to see a little girl driving home in the dark, like with like long dark hair and like this white dress. So I'm like, Amanda definitely is like really in tune and attached to the spiritual world. I don't think she's on TikTok, but if I can get her to, I'll have her add her ghost stories to the chain as well.
A ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely.
So I have a friend that saw this trend, and as soon as she saw it, she messaged me. She's like, you have to share your story with this trend, right? And well, my wife and kids just left me home alone for a couple hours, so I'm gonna scare myself retelling y'all this story. So this story starts back when I'm 5, right? I lived in this housing development, and right across from my backyard set right on the street, okay? And then across the street was a row of houses. And there was this one house over there that was, you know, old, rundown, like typical haunted house scary movie shit, right? So I used to sit out back and I'd play with my toys, and I would always see this old lady in the upstairs window in a rocking chair, right? So me being 5, I didn't think anything about it. I'd wave to her all the time, you know, she'd wave back, and it was whatever. And then one day my mom's like, who are you waving at? And I'm like, oh, I'm waving at that old lady in the window over there, right? So she's like, what old lady? I'm like, the old lady that's sitting right up in that window. She's in the rocking chair. She's wearing the white nightgown and, you know, has her hair in the rollers, you know. So, like, my mom goes white because apparently I described what this old lady looked like and what she always did to a T. And she died, like, 4 years before I was born, apparently. So that's where it starts. Now, fast forward until I'm about 12. Right? And me and 3 of my friends are sitting in the backyard. You know, it's a summer day, ain't got nothing to do. And, you know, we decide we're like, let's go in the house. Let's see what's up about it. Because you would hear noises coming from there all the time. No kidding. You hear noises coming from there all the time. But, you know, the adults were like, it's like homeless people break in there and they like to sleep in there. It ain't nothing major, right? So we decided to go check it out. So you couldn't get in the front door because the front was all boarded up. It wasn't happening. So we go around the back, and the back porch from wear and tear had sunk down. And when it sunk down, it took the door frame with it. So the back door didn't set level anymore. So give it a little shoulder pop, you get in the door, no problem, right? So we go in the back door, and we get in there, and there's beer cans and bottles all over the floor, graffiti on the walls and stuff. So it's like, okay, maybe the noises are just teenagers and homeless people hanging out in here, right? So immediately to my right, there was a kitchen counter, and it had a junk drawer that was open. Like, it was out, it was open. The counter ran all the way down the wall, and then opposite of that counter was the stairs that went upstairs. But they were enclosed. Like, how like sometimes attics will have the enclosed stairs where you open the door and go up instead of having a pull down ladder. It was like that. So like, that's in the opposite corner. And then right across from us, from the kitchen, is the living room. And between the living room and the kitchen, there's a little cutout there. And that was the door that goes down to the basement, right? So we get in, we're looking around. Now, me personally, I started watching scary movies pretty much right out the womb. So I was like, okay, I'm in, I saw it, we don't need to do anything else, I'm good, right? But my friends are like, oh, well, let's go look around, I want to look in the basement. Now, again, I tell you, I've been watching scary movies from the hop. I'm like, I'm not going to the basement. Because the basement is where all the truly evil shit always is. Okay? Like, I ain't doing it. So, they're making fun of me. I'm scared, this and that. And, I'm like, okay, whatever. We'll go, go check out the basement. Let me know what's up. So, they go across the kitchen. House is completely quiet. Okay? And they go across the kitchen. And they go down into the basement. Like 5 seconds after they go down into this basement, I start hearing creaking upstairs. Like a rocking chair makes. Back and forth. And then it stops. And I hear dum, 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 dum. Like somebody's walking across the hallway upstairs. And then it's like, like somebody's running down those stairs. The door flies open. Okay? I feel like a gust go past me. The junk drawer that is open next to me slams shut. I'm out. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I don't care what y'all doing in that basement. You were the dumb ones who went down in there. I'll survive and tell your story. I'm gone. So I bounce. I don't try to get them. I don't yell. Deuces. So I'm out the back door. And I run across the street. And I don't stop running till I'm like in my kitchen. Okay? So now I'm in the kitchen. I'm sitting at my kitchen table. And I'm looking out the kitchen window at this house across the street. And I'd say like maybe 30 seconds, a minute later, my friends come out. And they don't look right. You see like in those movies where like people have trauma and they just kind of have that shell shock look. And they're just like like it's not good. One of my friends was black. Have you ever seen a pale black person? Like a black person who was like scared white from fear? Cause like I did. It was wild. But anyway, so they come across the street. And I'm like, what'd y'all see down there? Like, what happened? The door flew open, the door shut, and I was gone, They would not tell me what happened in that basement. I mean, never. Like, they wouldn't tell me that day. Like, anytime, we were talking about it, like, years later, I'd be like, yeah, so what did you guys see in the basement that day? And, like, conversation would just stop, So, like, I never did find out. Now, the real wild thing is, out of the 4 of us that went into the house that day, I'm the only one that is still alive. All 3 of them are dead. All 3 of them were murdered, not at the same time. In different incidences, years apart. Coincidence? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm definitely thankful I didn't go into the basement that day. Or that they never told me. Because, you know, it kind of feels like that if you know what happened out in there, you got.